This is a City Commission Workshop for Monday, January the 25th, 2016 at 5:30. Have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Herzberg.
Here.
Commissioner Honaker.
He's excused.
Commissioner Schleicher.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Stuka.
Here.
Vice Mayor Namick.
Here.
Mayor Masarzi.
And he's excused. All right, if everybody could stand for a pledge to flag, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anybody wishing to speak on an item that is not on tonight's agenda? Any member of the public wishing to speak for an item that is not on tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll go to item number 4. Ms. Shang, we have a presentation from FDOT tonight.
Yes, we do. And we have Mr. Frank O'Day here with us. And do we need to turn the lights down?
Matt's getting them.
Hopefully, maybe these next few slides will be a little clearer, but there's a lot of light in the room. So, good evening. I'm Frank O'Day. I'm with the Florida Department of Transportation. I'm the Director of Transportation Development for District 5, which of course includes 9 counties, Volusia County being my home county and the headquarters to District 5. And I've been asked to give an update on just some projects that we're working on in this area, either recently completed, some things we're doing right now, as well as looking well into the future. So, quickly, after many years, we have finally completed a widening of State Road 415 basically from Acorn Lake up into State Road 46. That project has been on the books for a long time, but it was recently completed. And then, of course, it leads to the connection to the Lake Mary Boulevard extension. If you're familiar with this, you can see the Celery Road realignment with the expansion of the bridge. That's how far we had to move that Celery Road. That's just pretty interesting. People don't realize what gets involved. There's some pictures showing the reconstruction of the bridge. A lot of you might not have noticed we actually had to replace the center span of that existing bridge to get some additional clearance, which we didn't quite anticipate. Some projects, and of course we worked with the city and the county to include the well-used bike and pedestrian trail on that, and it connects into the trails in Seminole County. We did some realignments of Enterprise Osteen Road, and of course added the county on a separate project added the overpass near Osteen. And again, here's some pictures from other directions showing that project. Howland Boulevard, we extended the widening to just past that area. Currently, there are no plans, either from Volusia County or the DOT, to extend the widening farther north. That's not on the imperial priority list. So, for the time being, the expansion of State Road 415 ends in this area. Some additional projects we have in this vicinity currently, or in the very near future, we're going to be doing some landscaping at the interchange of I-4 and Saxon Boulevard. We have let a contract for about $827,000. We'll be starting it this summer. And that will be complete early October. And of course, we coordinate with city staff. There was some landscaping done years ago, and the maintenance of that was between the cities of Deltona, Orange City, and DeBerry. Those agreements kind of fell apart. So with this new contract, the Department of Transportation is actually taking on the maintenance responsibilities of, I believe, of those new plantings to help out so that it doesn't fall into disrepair. 472, quite a bit going on at 472. Of course, I say starting soon, it's already started within the last few weeks, a resurfacing project as well as an extension of the turn lane heading towards the east, or I'm sorry, to the west on I-4. That, if you ever head there in the morning, you realize that's a bad backup. So that all the added pavement there is to add turning capacity onto I-4 in the morning. And then, of course, we're going to be doing, while we're there, we're going to be adding some resurfacing the pavement as well. We've worked with city staff. We're going to be doing some landscaping. I think the city has a contract that we're working to help pay for some landscaping there. And then in 2018, we'll be adding some lighting at that interchange as well. We're going through a program where we're adding lighting at all our interstate interchanges. And then some additional landscaping. The reason we phased this is because we didn't want to put anything in and have to remove it later. So there is going to be a little bit of phasing. But again, our staff has been working closely with the city staff to make those happen. Now, what's really big happening is I-4, and we're calling this Beyond the Ultimate. We have an I-4 Ultimate project that a lot of you might be familiar with. It's adding 4 lanes, 2 managed lanes in each direction, 2 express lanes, and they're tolled express lanes. Well, for the section that we're calling Beyond the Ultimate, that will extend those managed lanes, those express lanes from Longwood at State Road 434, and those will eventually extend all the way up to State Road 472 here in the Deltona area. We have a section where you'll have your current capacity, which is your 3 lanes each direction, and then you'll have the new capacity, which will be a toll. It's going to be a variable toll. What that means is the traffic will be monitored, and in the managed lanes, the more traffic there is, the higher that toll will be, so that if you're a driver and you have to get somewhere and you need a reliable, more reliable guarantee on your travel time, you can make a decision. It'll be signed. You'll get to know how long it takes to get to a certain location and how much it'll cost. It's a concept that we've been having to resort to just because gas tax is not working to fund
And that's not classified as price gouging. If there's a hurricane, I can't mark up my price of my materials, but you can do it on a road. I just don't understand how it works, but that's just...
Well, we can get into the concept of gas tax. The way the gas tax works is the gas tax is based on the gallons. And what's happening over time, it's a formula that's failing, because with more fuel-efficient cars, which we think is a good thing, and with people traveling less, the amount of money we're collecting to pay for roads and bridges is actually less now than it was in the past. And so this is one way that we've determined that we can generate revenue to pay for these expansions. And the other benefit that with the current law that the legislature has passed is once the capacity that was paid for is paid off, those funds then become available for use in the county that they're collected. So other road projects then through the NPO will be able to afford. Yes.
Will the, if there's an accident on the regular lanes, will FHP be able to move people to the toll lanes at no cost, or? we haven't
I'm
worked
not
that
sure
out yet?
if we're doing that at no cost or not. There are emergency gates going to be placed every so often to allow access, because if you're familiar, South Florida is using these right now, but they're using the delineators. There's some good and some bad with the delineators. They're very expensive because people keep running right through them all the time. Our concept here is we have concrete barrier separation, but we will include every few miles places for emergency vehicles to be able to access them. We haven't quite figured out the operations if we're going to, obviously if it's a hurricane, everyone's free. You don't have the toll roads now, but we'll figure that out as time goes on.
Can I ask a question on this? Are you done?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Did I understand you correctly, the busier the road is, the higher the toll?
The busier the express lanes, the higher the toll.
Now that seems
Counterintuitive.
counterintuitive
Right.
to me,
So
because why wouldn't you incentivize people
Because
to use the tolls?
As a driver, what you're going to be doing is we're trying, with the express lanes, the idea is that you're going to make a choice. Right now, to get downtown, you have basically 2, if you're going to Orlando, you have a choice of I-4, Sunrail, and there's not even an express bus anymore. So the idea is there would be a choice, and if you need to get somewhere by a certain amount of time, you can make that decision. But if the express lanes get too clogged, what happened in South Florida, quite honestly, is people thought the opposite. That's why we're talking about it early. They saw the price going up on the managed lanes, and they kept jumping in them, thinking, oh, well, something's wrong. I better go in these managed lanes. And then they would clog up the managed lanes, and then if you're going to pay a toll, you're going to want to benefit for it. So the idea is that when you go in, now the price may go up afterwards. You're paying the price that was said when you go in, because it's all electronic. There are no people taking toll. It's all through your transponders.
Okay.
Yeah, but what she said though, I was in Miami coming north, dead stop traffic. I jump in the express lanes thinking everyone's a moron until I got my bill. There was nobody in the express lanes because they don't want to pay that, because it cost me $30 to go from there. It was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
Well, the tolls, I mean, initially what happened in Miami is both the express lanes, their average speed was, I don't know, 50 miles an hour. The general use lanes in the morning used to be around 25. They went up to about 35 or 40. So both of them saw an increase because some of the traffic was choosing to use the toll lanes.
And that's not price gouging.
You have an option. Yeah. Yeah.
You have an option.
You have an option. I can go to Home Depot or Lowe's, I can mark up my price at Home Depot, I can still go.
You can get it on Amazon.
Well, and again, the idea is
It's
that
gouging.
running out of options to pay for the road expansions. And I'm not sure how you want to handle.
No,
questions
you've
from
got the
audience.
floor, go ahead, you can go ahead. and-
Okay, and I'm pretty sure I got this right, but these express lanes are going to be open for every kind of driver, whether it's single, you don't have to have multiple people in the car.
We will not, right now, our policy, we will not allow heavy trucks. We are not allowing heavy trucks in the express lanes, but it's not HOV.
No, it's
Right.
not an HOV.
And there was some, I don't know how you want to handle questions from the audience. This
Lady in the green.
Yes, with the Advantage lane, and it's like $30 that the gentleman said, just as a number. Would you have it where you would have an annual pass type of thing, where like if you take an average of how many people might use it in a week, and then like say if they used it every day to get to where they want to go, and say it would cost them $1,000 in a year at the normal rate, then you get a membership and it's maybe only $800.
That-
I mean, that would be ridiculous. I mean,
That
it's
is
a lot
one of the
money,
concepts. Right now, Central Florida Expressway Authority has a frequent road user policy where if you, my son lives at UCF and works at Lockheed Martin, I pay his bill first toll. And he uses it enough that I get a whopping 10% discount on that because over a certain threshold. I will say that this is so, I haven't gotten to the end of this is so far off, there's a lot of things where we don't have the answers yet. But that's one of the options, that a more frequent user would get a reduction.
Can I please name and address for
Sorry,
the record?
Susan Collins, 3201 North Tulsa Drive.
Anybody else? Okay.
In addition to the express lanes, which adds capacities, a couple of projects that are going to be impacting the Deltona area that are hopefully seen as benefits. We're going to be expanding Saxon Boulevard. One of the key things Saxon Boulevard right now we know is already challenged in the afternoon rush hour. To make I-4 work, we need to widen Saxon Boulevard to at least 6 lanes from I-4 to the east. So we've been working with city staff. There were a couple concepts that weren't real popular. We took a couple of rows of homes for some retention ponds that did not seem to go over real well. We've been working with city staff, and we're actually working with, they have reclaimed water. So we're going to work with the city where they're going to take our water and then use that area where the vaults are can be like a gateway entrance to the city. And again, this is a ways off, but we're continuing to work with city staff on this Saxon Boulevard. Another nice feature of this is to get to these managed lanes, you either have some slip ramps or you have a couple of direct connects. And our proposal that we worked with the city and the county was to finally address that Rhode Island extension across I-4. And so as part of this project, the department would build that connection and then in addition allow access to the express lanes. So what that will do is people who choose to use the express lanes, they don't have to use 472 or Saxon, they have another choice now. So it'll be another entry point into the express lane.
Does it only go then to the express lanes?
That entrance will only go to the express lanes, yes. A couple of, this is very hard to see, but we do have a website where all of these slides are available, and it's called i4express.com. But down there at Dirksen, we're looking to relocate that existing park and ride and add an additional ramp to where the park and ride basically is. Right now, you have to kind of do the loop around. We would do, right now, you exit around, and we're looking to do an express. A lot of Deltona residents take that route. And then we would look to relocate the park and ride to the other side. I mentioned Saxon. We were looking to widen Saxon at least all the way to Normandy as part of this project as well. And then the Rhode Island extension that I mentioned before. Right here, I-4 is here, and then you have Normandy on the east and Veterans Parkway on the west. So the department would, as part of this project, build that road as a 4-lane road, and then it would allow connectivity between Orange City and Deltona. At 472, we'd be making some additional changes, diverging Diamond Interchange. The improvements we're making now are going to help things for a little while, but as traffic continues to grow, which we expect and is good, we're going to be looking at making some more improvements as well. So I mentioned timing. Timing for this express is still a ways off. The earliest we can expect the entire project is in the late 2020s. I will not be with the Department of Transportation in the late 2020s. So some people might say, is there any relief in sight? Well, we believe there is. There's a couple of things that we're trying to do. We're in the middle of our PD&E, which is the first step, our planning step with the Federal Highway Administration to get approval for the I-4 expansion. Once we get that, which will be by the end of this calendar year, we then have the opportunity, once we work with the MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, we might be able to advance some of those components. And the two that we know the city might be interested is the Rhode Island overpass, and also work with the city on Saxon Boulevard. We are doing another traffic study on Saxon to see if there's some things, again, we realize that's a problem today. It will not wait until 2020. So we're in the middle of a study, and quite honestly, that intersection at Finland is a problem for us. And we have to look at options. They won't be popular options. And one of them might be looking at eliminating turns at certain times of the day. Our proposal is we're going to do a study, we'll do some simulations, and then before we do anything, we talk to the public and say, here's option A, here's option B, here's option C, and then see which ones might be suitable. And that's really all I had, unless we got some more questions.
Any questions?
One other one. When you're talking about the widening of Saxon to 6 lanes, is there any talk at all about the bridge at I-4 in Saxon that's now 4 lanes? Of widening that bridge?
That would be part of it, right? The bridge over I-4 would be widened as well.
At Saxon?
At Saxon, yes. And then it would be, it's already 6 lane on the west side in the Orange City area.
Right.
And so it would be 6 lane all the way across.
Right.
Okay, and you said right now DOT controls Saxon, the bridge, basically, that you guys control that or maintain that?
I'm not sure if DOT or the county maintains the actual bridge. But
Or 472?
472 is a state road, so we.
Because you mentioned beautifying, you mentioned other things,
Right,
but
right.
if you come across those bridges, they're disgusting. They don't maintain them either way. So that's what I say, I don't know who's in charge of that stuff.
Well, and I'm not, I think you had a meeting with our maintenance staff pretty recently. Your city manager called that to our attention. I don't know if you have a follow-up with us on that.
Yes, and in fact, I went out there with Matt just last week, and actually they had been cleaned up at 472 and as well as on Saxon. I think what we're suggesting is that we may get a certain amount of funding from FDOT and maybe the city take over that work. You know, we're trying to work, and we're trying to kind of negotiate what we think is like reasonable. Because I know that your schedule, I believe it's like 4 times out of the year, and I think we need a lot more maintenance to those areas. But it has been cleaned up. They have done a lot of mowing. They've done a lot of like weed control, so there is a difference. But the key is that we've got to figure out a way that we maintain that level of maintenance, and that's what's in discussion right now.
And I know we worked with the city on even the selection of the trees. You know, you can pick some trees that require a lot more landscaping than others. Going with palms that require trimming a couple times a year rather than bushes. You know, I drive down the expressway and I look, it's beautiful, it looks wonderful, but if you don't maintain it, I mean, I'm a homeowner, so I know what it's like. It looks nice, and I'm always worried about the maintenance. I will say that one common complaint we get from a lot of municipalities is our maintenance standards. We get funded for a certain level of maintenance, and we hit that standard. Our road pavements are some of the best in the state. A lot of communities, that's not good enough, so we do work with them. We enter joint agreements where we fund a certain portion, the cities or counties will work. We have a number of agreements with Orange City and DeLand and other communities. So I think you met with our director of operations to talk about that as well.
Alan, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
When you're doing the studies for Saxon, is it going to be at your department, or are they going to be here so that we can?
Well, when we have public meetings, the last few times we've had them, we actually had them right here at the City Hall building.
Okay.
In the community room, I guess. Well, I don't know the name of the room.
Commission chambers.
So it has been in process already?
Well, this latest study, we're starting a new one. I mean, this I-4 Ultimate, we've had a couple meetings, some right here in this building, to talk about the I-4 Ultimate. This new study that we're starting on Saxon hasn't started yet. It will start in the next few months.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Can I
Thank
just
you,
want
Rick.
to make one last comment? One of the questions that was asked is, we own a piece of property at the intersection of Saxon and Normandy. All right, one of the questions is that's also an area that we wanted to put up a sign, whether it be an electronic sign or something to kind of beautify that intersection. And so now we do have some information from FDOT as to what the impact will be at that corner so we can proceed.
Where it could be.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions that was asked of me. So
Are we
I
still
wanted to
doing
follow-
that something temporary there until?
Well, now that we know the impact, if we want to, we can do something more
If
permanent.
we know where it's gonna be now.
Yeah.
Unless it changed, unless
But
it
even with the
changed.
widening, I mean,
But with the widening, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
it's not gonna interfere, so we
Okay.
can move forward if we want to. We don't have to do a temporary concept.
The signage that is Ormond Beach, 40 and 95, when you go underneath.
LPGA or?
no, 40.
40. When you're coming out of Ormond and you go to get on I-95 southbound, you're going under I-95, there's some real nice signage that, is that the city of Ormond Beach
City
that's
of
done
Ormond
that?
Beach donated by the Lomans.
Okay. All right. I just.
They just put it
I
up,
like
they put up,
It looks.
they
it looks-
just did it, yeah,
looks
it's on
nice.
the overpass.
It looks nice. It's
And then
on
they have
the-
a separate
yeah.
thing in the center. Yeah, that was just completed and that was a private donation.
We do work with a lot of communities. If you're familiar with I-95 and State Road 44, the city of New Smyrna put up some walls and put up their city. We have a process called community aesthetic features where we work with local communities if they want features that add, especially if they're targeted to the city names and things like that. We have a process for dealing with that.
Like when we do some of that work on Saxon, that would be nice to see
Well,
that.
then again, Saxon is a challenge, and I live right on the other. I live right off Saxon, so I know I lived through it as well. So I don't want you to think I don't understand it. And figuring out how to get those cars in the afternoon off the interstate, I mean that's a real safety problem. So we really do want to get that fixed.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is item 4B, discussion regarding implementation of compensation and classification. Ms. Shang?
Yes, actually, I
Yeah,
will
I like
have
that
Richard
one.
introduce our consultant.
We have Dr. Long here from Management Advisory Group, who completed the compensation study, and he's here to do a brief presentation and to answer any questions you might have. Is that it?
Can we get somebody to bring the lights back up, Jerry?
Unless they're gonna use the overhead.
How do we get the screen up?
Oh, it's like
Also
PowerPoint?
PowerPoint.
We good with the lights where they are? Everybody can see that? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your invitation, Commission and staff, audience. Our company is Management Advisory Group International. We're a management consulting firm, and our market is the public sector. We've been doing this for over 25 years, and I've done over 75 studies in the state of Florida and about 25 other states. So this is what we do. What I'd like to do is just go over for a few minutes, a few slides to talk about this project and this goals and objectives and some of the outcomes. So this study included approximately 237 employees within the city's employment and covered approximately 129 job classifications or job titles. One of the goals was to conduct a market survey for what we call relevant peers and competitors. And in a couple of slides from now, I'll show you what those were. And, but they were selected based on size, population generally is a good criterion. Another is your competitive environment. Who are you competing with? Generally, we look in the region to make sure that we cover the proper competitors that are out there. Our goal was to classify all the positions to make sure that actually I should say internal competitiveness, to make sure the positions relate to one another properly within the structure. So we were involved in that, did that job analysis. I'll talk about that in a minute. We suggested appropriate staffing levels for each of the departments. We talked to departments individually and identified some major data that we scaled and looked at relative to the number of staff and made some suggestions. Overall, you're pretty well staffed properly. There were a few positions that we were suggesting. That was in the report. We were asked to provide pay grade recommendations for all the included job classes or job titles, which we did. We created a pay structure that was actually very similar to the one you have now. So it wasn't a great deal of change. And actually overall, your market, you were in a very competitive position. So it's been managed well over the years. We're slightly behind, so there were some adjustments that we suggested, a few job title changes that were suggested, and every job classification was graded, evaluated, and placed within the structure. And we also provided an implementation cost option that, and that's actually more of a board decision and top staff decision as far as the type of implementation that you would choose. Typically, we'll recommend that at least we ask that you put all positions at the minimum of the pay range for a suggested title. So that's really the only thing you're compelled to do. But there are a lot of different ways to implement a study like this. We suggested one that I think feathers the positions in properly, recognizes some time within the position, and provides an adjustment to pretty much everybody except for, I think, 3 people who were probably, I think, over the max, the recommended max. Anyway, it's a very limited implementation cost, actually, from my experience, because most of the people are within their ranges, and so it's actually a very limited cost. Your greatest cost is if you provide an across the board, and I'll show you what those numbers are. So, in terms of the steps, we did orientation sessions for employees to complete job analysis questionnaires about their jobs. It's about a 25-page questionnaire, and the staff will understand all that. They've been through it. And most of the employees did complete questionnaires. They did a great job. It asks questions about the nature of the work, type of tasks they perform on a regular routine basis. Addresses things like education and experience that would be required for the job. Ask them questions about decisions that they make, communications they have during the day, and a whole wide variety of job factors that apply to any job. So employees did that, and they did a great job. We reviewed that, we conducted interviews with the departments. We conducted the market survey, which I'll show you the targets here in just a moment. We looked at the staffing levels and developed the compensation structure, and prepared a report that's comprehensive. So these are the targeted market agencies that we compared to. Again, we try to look at size and location, geography. Who are you competing with? You know, and this is based on talking to departments where we identified who are you losing people to any other employers? Who are they? Who are you competing with on a regular basis? And using our own judgment as well in that process. So all these were considered, surveyed. Most responded. So in terms of an implementation, let me make sure I didn't skip one. Okay, we got it. We're targeting October 1st as an implementation time, and that's normal. A lot of agencies switch over at that time due to budget. The cost and guidelines for implementation include a 3% across the board. Again, but city practice has been that if you're hired after April 1st, that would not apply. And that's how the the calculations include everybody. I think there's a handful of people, because I can't carve those numbers out. But so the implementation costs are a little bit higher than what you will experience because of those 4 or 5 employees that were hired after April 1st. So I couldn't carve it out of the program. There are what we call equity transition costs. Again, it's based on time within the position. So that feather people in, we call it, and it recognizes the time within the position, and it helps prevent compression. So if two people were hired at different times, let's say one person has 10 years in the same job and another person has 2 years in the same job, and they're making about the same amount right now, what the program we have developed does is it, again, relieves that compression. That's what we call compression. So we relieve that. So the person with 10 years in the job would have a greater adjustment to implement the study than the person in the job for 2 years. Make sense? All those costs are calculated. 234 people would receive an adjustment. Most of the costs for adjustments are for field positions and office positions, and some to managers and supervisors, and a smaller portion to the directors, which tells me that they're within their ranges, and maybe you have some new director positions, and so, but most of and there are more people in the field positions and office positions as well. So that's the distribution of the costs. In terms of the numbers, a 3% across the board for the employees that are in the database that we have been working with, provided by the city and we've worked with, is $296,000 across the board. The adjustment to minimum then for 31 employees who are below the recommended minimum would be an annualized amount of $28,150. That's to bring them to the minimum of their recommended pay grade. So each pay grade, each position is assigned to a pay grade, and each pay grade has a minimum and a maximum. So 31 people are recommended for adjustment to the minimum. The equity adjustments I was describing would be for 95 employees based on time within the position, and allows or prevents the kind of compression I was describing. And that's actually a very minimal cost in my experience relative to the other many projects that I've had the pleasure of doing. So that tells me that you're in pretty good shape overall. This is actually a very minimal implementation cost. So the total change would be, including the 3%, would be that $432,000, or about 4% of the total payroll for all the positions that are within the database for the study. That's it.
Questions?
It is.
And I had some from the last one.
Yeah, I got some too.
From the first that we had.
Right.
Okay, Diane, your question.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I can't find the sheet right now, but I will. You based the study on 30-year in the position, correct? Or 30-year, you're using 30 years as the basis?
Okay, this is how you may have read in the report, it talks about using 30 years as a method of implementation. Okay, it assumes that it would take 30 years for a person to get from the minimum to the maximum. And then it actually, we calculate in the software that we use, that's licensed to the city now for use internally, it calculates what we call a target salary based on the number of years within the position. Okay? And if a person's been in the position for 10 years, it would calculate a target salary that's probably about 1/3 of the way through that range. If the person's been in the position for 30 years, you would assume that they would go to the maximum. So if you're using a calculation that's less than 30 years, it takes less than 30 years to get to that maximum, then the cost would be higher. Okay, you with me? So our default, our default recommendation is to use 30 years because a lot of retirement plans are based on 30 years, and it's kind of a norm in the industry.
So that is the norm in the industry, because that, you know, this is another language to me, so I really had to do my homework on this. And I talked to a few friends in, either in municipalities or in the business, and I'm being told that 30 is not the industry standard. That is because you're the expert in this, 30 years is what we should be using. Or are we using it only because it's less expensive? Because you said it would cost more.
We use it as a default because most of retirement plans are about at that level. Some 27, some 28, 29, 30.
Okay.
School board's 30.
School board's 30? That's what they based their last, I don't even remember when they did a comp study.
And most was a 30-year. That's where you can retire. I think 30 years is one of your options to go out.
Yeah, but isn't, that's a little different, what she's talking about, isn't it? That when you're allowed to retire, you know, when you're fully,
But it goes with the same idea
Okay.
as that is the.
I thought in the basis for comp studies, 30 was not the industry standard, but you're telling me it is.
The 30 comes into play just as a means of, as I said, feathering in or trying to make sure people are at
Okay.
what they should be at as a target salary. If the person's current salary is above that target salary, then there wouldn't be an adjustment made.
Yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying. And I do have questions, but I'll wait for
Okay.
the next round.
Heidi?
Oh, no, I'm good right now.
Brian?
Okay, I got a bunch, but so we'll just start going. Right off the beginning, right off the bat, you just say your recommendations consider current salary, current job title, and length of service. Now I'm only looking, like I said, 'cause I got Port Orange's right here, and they look at benefits. Then you talk right here and you say, hey, our benefit package is much higher than people around us.
Insurance.
That's
Or health-
healthcare costs.
Healthcare cost, which is a large cost. Also, right off the front of this, it says compensation study including city attorney and city manager. Yet I don't see them in here.
They were removed from the study because the city attorney is a contract position, I believe.
But I still want to know, I mean, I can look right here at this one, first of all, which is that thick. And this is this thick. And all I feel is when you give me something this big, you're trying to hide stuff in there and shove stuff down that we don't even know about. Like Diana already said, this is in another language. But then it leads me to the next thing is, if I'm working here in the city, I want to be treated fair across the board. So if I'm a director, I want to be in a director pay range. If I'm an assistant, I want to be in an assistant pay range. I want to be, and when I look through your classifications and numbers, do you give us these numbers, or were these numbers given to you to give to us? The pay numbers, or where they fall in position?
We're recommending pay ranges for each job title.
Oh, well, I mean,
They didn't come from you.
if I look at all the directors, which is pay number 30,
Okay.
okay? Then I have the city clerk, that's a 29.
Okay.
So she goes down. Here, she's actually a department head. And the salary range is identically the same. So why wouldn't the city clerk be in there, first of all? And then, like I said, I look through other cities. I mean, I can, there's just a lot of things that I have questions on that. Did we tell you those, or did you come back and say that's where they should be?
We recommended those. Nobody
No
directed
one-
us.
If I may, no one directed the consultant to any conclusion.
Okay, let's just touch the event manager we're talking about hiring. Okay? The event manager, if I look at a city over here, is 50 is the max. Okay? I come over here to ours, and it's 100 and something is the max for the event planner. It's a pay plan is a 23. So actually 24.
25, I think it is.
Yeah, 25.
25.
So 109,000 is the max for an event coordinator. Yet I'm looking at Port Orange, seeing their event manager is the highest 53.
Not the same position,
but
obviously.
okay, but listen. You got to hear me out. When you do this study, you understand where you're at, right? You understand what city you just drove into.
I certainly do.
Okay, we're in Deltona. I'm looking at Port Orange, which it doesn't take a rocket science to know that it costs more to live in this city than it does in this city. Probably almost double. I'm looking at my department heads in here. If this goes the way that you're planning, that you're recommending, every department head in my city will be over $100,000. Every department head. 101, 100, 111, 121, 109. I look at this department head in a city which costs more to live in, and I see there's only 2 people that are in hundreds. And I just don't understand that surely where we live, you're telling me the range for a department head is $140,000.
No, that's what it is currently.
Right.
You have a range, or all department heads are placed at a range that's 71,000 to 140,000.
But the ranges on this are much lower, okay? So, but that's what I'm saying is I'm looking at you to tell me, okay, where do we fall in line? I'm looking at a competitor company of yours that did one in Port Orange, that their ranges, they don't match up. They just don't match up.
That's
And
one among many of the targets, right? I showed you the targets.
but
those were all
they
specified.
took in consideration benefits, where you didn't touch benefits.
We weren't requested to.
Right, and see if we're paying for a salary study, I want to know what the policemen in my city make compared to the firemen. I want to know if my city manager makes way more money than everyone around me. I want to know if my city attorney makes more money than all the way around me. I want to know that my department heads are similar, and we shouldn't be on the high side of Port Orange. And that's what I'm saying. What you're recommending is every department head in our city make over $100,000. The average household income in my city, is 53. Actually, I think it's less than that now. And we're looking right now, I can talk to everyone in the department head sitting in here right now, and they can tell you they want more people to work for them. We need more bodies. Well, I can tell you right now, I can get you more bodies right here. And then I'm looking at some assistants that make way more than other assistants. So it's not even, I mean, if you want to look at IT, look at the second man in IT, look at the second guy in public works compared to other departments. It just doesn't line up. And if I'm sitting here, which I believe it's on the high side anyway, I would want it to be fair across the board. And the only thing that goes in time is time in the job. If I've been here 10 years and Heidi's been here for 5, I should be making more than her. Okay? But my point is I just don't. And I'm sorry, guys, I know I just don't agree with these numbers. I don't understand. And like I said, I have a competitor company here that did Port Orange that it's just, these are just, everything is on the high side. So I just don't agree with it.
Did you read the report that included the hall?
Which page of this 1,000-page report did you want me to read? Which page I
The
missed?
survey detail.
Yes, the front page?
No, the survey detail.
I think that's what you put on the front page.
I don't know.
Is that the whole, the piece of the
Yeah, the summary?
summaries?
Yeah. I think we put it on the front page. Like I said, it was, the executive summary.
No. There is a lot of detail that is in the background
Section
that included
3.0
the
maybe?
survey of 20-some positions of all the targets
You're
that
talking
were
about the beginning
identified.
section, when you start talking about the introduction and the methodology.
He's talking about the survey.
But it gets into how they created the classifications, what organizations, what cities they looked at.
But I'm talking about the survey detail itself.
It's 3.0, it's section 3.0.
But the point is, at the end of the study, if we have people who are techs out there mowing grass, and they are not where they should be, so be it. But you can't tell me, looking at my other cities around us, that our department heads aren't on the same level, if not higher. And then we're going to go give a raise across the board to everybody to put them in the range, which is what Diane brings up. If I come to you now as a city, you're just going to ballpark 30 year me right now. That's what, or are you going to start at 10, or are you going to start at 20 years, or are you going right to 30 years? That's what you're going to do, 30 years. To give me
the 30 years is just the method of calculating.
To get to a midpoint.
No. To feather in, to make any adjustments that might be appropriate to make sure that you relieve the compression.
If you give me a 20 year, would it not lower my midpoint?
No.
So you're just saying you're just going to get bigger raises.
If you use a 20-year implementation approach, that would increase your costs because it would take less time to go from the minimum to the maximum.
I'm just one person, guys. I don't agree with this. And if you look at your competitors around you and cities that, to me, cost way more to live in than this one right here.
Have they been provided with the survey detail, do you know?
The entire report, yes.
Okay, well, it might be instructive to take a look at that, and then I think you'll see what some of the competitors are, because what we did is, in terms of the survey, is we we took the information from the job analysis questionnaires that employees did, that completed their questionnaires, so we knew what the jobs are. We know what the jobs are. We summarized that, and we said to all this list of competitors, we said, what do you, yes, we said, what are you paying for these kinds of positions? And they told us what, based on their knowledge of their own jobs, what their amounts were. And then we averaged all of the responses that were made for each one of the positions.
And you also looked at what you felt were pertinent municipalities or cities to compare the positions to.
But you say that though, but when you compare Deltona to anything, because we have so many people here, we're a large city, but we're not a Daytona, we're not, to me, a Port Orange, we're
You're
not.
competing with them.
So we should be higher than them? Just to
Say
get
that. We used averages of all of the survey responses as a guideline to help in putting the structure together. This also pushes the numbers forward into this upcoming budget year so that you'll be competitive with the other agencies for all of the next year. It's based on beginning October 1st.
The section here.
I'm looking for the one I had.
But like I
It says
said,
salary survey results at the top.
We weren't playing hide the ball on anything. All the information that was generated from the survey is included in the report. Okay? So I think if you look at the department head responses by all of the respondents,
but it's also classification, because they classify jobs different than we classify jobs. Like they clump the department heads to department heads, they clump, the assistants. If you look at how their pay ranges, you're coming back giving me, like I said, I got a department head that's 29, where the rest of my department heads are 30, yet the pay range is identical, which I don't understand.
I don't know how that would be. That's not.
You have the city clerk at 29, you have every other director at 30, and the pay range is identically the same. So,
No.
on my minimum annual wage, is that not the same?
The
Right here?
bold-
71 to 140, 71
The
to 140?
bold-faced is the recommended. The lighter type style is the current. Okay.
So you normally, in most cities, you'll put an event manager above all the assistants.
Not many cities have that position. That's one matter.
I can show you
You've
one
got
of
a
those.
degree,
Yeah,
so,
not many.
Well, there's some.
Yeah, but that
But you have to look at the job description.
but you've
too,
got
as part of
an
it.
important function you're trying to,
$109,000 range?
you got an important function you're trying to staff up. You've got a degree requirement for it. And you've got tasks that include marketing, fundraising,
To look at the job
managing.
description.
You felt internally that that was an appropriate level.
Also, there's a spreadsheet that makes a comparison for the events managers to compare with other municipalities in regards to.
Why didn't we do city manager and city attorney?
Their contract positions, we were advised.
I'm looking at one right here, including city, I mean, this, to me, I go off of what's been done. This was done, what, a year and a half ago?
I don't-
2 years ago? And they do the city attorney, city manager.
They may have been asked to do that. We were asked to remove those positions from the study because they're contract positions that the commission.
But I still want to know where we're at compared to everyone else around us. No
Okay,
different.
I'll let you know. I can give you a separate recommendation if that's the wish of the commission.
Okay, Nancy?
Yeah, well, I actually have no problem with the bumping up and getting everybody onto at least the minimum, because I think that is definitely something we need to do. A little concerned about the upper end too, but, I can be flexible with that. The fact that we do have a higher medical health cost, I know we are working on that currently. So when this takes effect, if this would take effect tonight, will we have the health insurance package by the same time this is taken care of?
We should, yes, we should have, what is the RFP do? August.
Yes, there's Nancy's.
Yeah,
So that we'll have those numbers as well as this added to this? Or is that different?
Well, we will have those numbers, yes.
To that, okay.
So we can decide what we want to do with those numbers, how we want to proceed.
Okay. The other thing I have is I know full well, like I say, this automatic raises, which a lot of people do. Where does performance?
I forgot to bring that up too.
Where does performance come into this?
Well,
Or is it just an automatic? no
That's
matter
what I said, that's why I forgot to bring it up. That was the next thing.
Well,
Yeah, where are we with performance as far as, a raise, but also meaning performances?
Or we reward the bad people along with the good people?
No, because what we implemented was a process where everybody is doing their job, okay? And for those who aren't doing their job, you have the same type of disciplinary action, you have a performance improvement plan. And for those who aren't, they would not be subject to a raise.
Okay,
If they were under.
But you're saying everybody right now is getting the 3%. There's nobody that's coming out of there.
Unless there is somebody, and I can think of one person, even though this was not in the report, but because of disciplinary actions where they're not performing, they would not get the raise.
So out of 300 some employees, we only have one employee that
I don't
was
know, I
subpar
can
this
think
year.
of one. I don't know who is under some type of performance improvement plan.
Why would there not be an evaluation? Okay.
There isn't about, if you're not performing, yes, you will have the documentation as to why they're not performing, the reasons for it.
Nancy, are you done?
Yeah, that was the biggest question I had, was wanted to make sure about the performance.
Okay. My only concern is when we went into this, I said we needed to look at total package. We needed to look at salary, we needed to look at benefits, who's got a take-home car, who gets a stipend for a car. Total compensation package was my only condition, and apparently that wasn't taken into consideration. We only looked at.
That's what he said too.
We only looked at salary. So that is an issue because I've bargained several contracts over the years, and for instance, the sheriff's department, they have a Indianapolis plan where they have a take-home car. There's justification for that, for the sheriff to do that. It's a system that works well for them in this county, but when they go to the bargaining table, there is a certain amount of benefit that's weighted to having that vehicle. We have some responders in the city here, the fire chief and some of the staff have those vehicles. We've got some folks in public works or the water department that have those because they have to respond out. So when we look at the salary, we need to look at the total compensation package because there is value to that. Now I'll go back to Heidi now.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So just a few comments. First of all, for the city manager, I think that comparison is easy enough to go ahead and survey, and we've done city manager surveys in the past, to go ahead and survey what the city managers are getting paid in our area. And you also have to look at what this city has done in the past, and that we've been in effect without a strong city manager for 10 years. And therefore, you have a situation with your employees, with everything else, that you've got to bring everything to a whole new level and a whole new a form of management. And that's not easy. I mean, she's been here 1 year. And to go ahead and there's a lot of shifting, there's a lot of change, and I think it's good, but I understand some of the bumps in the road. For the city attorney, if you want to do a proper survey of the city attorney, she's a contract employee, but if you're going to go ahead and do that, you have to look at every single city. Doesn't only have one city attorney. A lot of the city attorney costs, and I've researched this in the past, are done in individual departments. Every department has a lot of times a level for what they've got for city attorney costs. So to go ahead and say, your city attorney, like our previous city attorney, was getting paid $132,000 a year plus benefits, but then that can't take into consideration the bargaining, did it take into consideration everything else. So I think the city attorney, I'm fine to do another survey on that, but then let's be all inclusive, let's attack everyone and go ahead and really look into every department from every city and get the proper numbers. The sheriff's contract for our police, to do a comparison with other cities, we have a contract. And our wages are not under our control. As much as maybe we'd like them to be, or we'd like to have some say-so, the best we can do is bonus them at the end of the year or do something. I mean, we don't have control over what the sheriff's department says. For the rest of the compensation study, basically what you're saying is 79% of the employees at the bottom end need to be bumped up. And we know this through the water department and everything else. Because from what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, what you did is you did a general comparison of jobs and positions in the cities where the people that are employed here would have the option to go take other jobs, that same job somewhere else, and are we competitive with that in this market or not. It doesn't mean are we competitive with the city, are our employees gonna go to a Pop Guard, are they gonna go to Port Orange, are they gonna go to Sanford? And we know that happens in the water department a lot, let's be fair. The water department, lower end people, they stay a year, they get trained, they get their certification, correct me if I'm wrong, and they leave because we don't pay enough, right? I mean, that's basically what we're looking at. So, I mean, I have no problem at all bringing those employees up to par, because what you're doing is you're just continually turning over the employees, and your cost is actually increasing because you have to train everybody all the time. And then for the upper end, I have the same concern. I don't disagree with Brian. I maybe don't understand how everybody gets an automatic raise, and if you're already at the top of your level, how you get, I mean, close to that, how you get more. That's my only issue with this. But I'd like to now look at the events manager. And when you look at this, first of all, City of Ormond Beach, community events coordinator, 2 part-time workers to do special events at the Casements facility, $31,000 to $54,000. First of all, Ormond Beach has 7 paid employees to run their events. 7. Every single facility has an event person. It's not one person, there's 7. And they get paid in the $45,000 to the $50,000 range. That I know for sure. So when you want to start comparing events managers and somebody to do that, again, it's like the city attorney. You have to start looking and seeing which employee and which is put in which department and how it's paid.
Let me go back to this spreadsheet.
So, I mean, I still am, I don't agree with the high end for the events manager, but I certainly agree with, if you want someone that's going to do the job and run an $8 million community center, you at least need to go ahead and pay a decent salary for that. So again, my concern is, one question. When you looked at this, the only recommendation was up. There was no recommendation down, correct, for any of the salaries. It was only up or level. Am I right?
Yeah, no, you're right. Everything was up.
It was
There's not
only
one.
up.
You said there might be people above the high scale, but the recommendation was not the
Were there any recommendations to take anybody down?
You mean any individual salary?
Yes, any individual
No
salary.
individual salary. It was dropped.
Okay.
We don't do that.
Okay, and that was my question. Is that the parameter that you do when you start with the study? It's a leveling out and it's an up.
For individual salaries, yes, that's correct. We use a program and we have programmed it so it doesn't reduce anyone's individual salary, because we don't know how they got to that salary. That's an organizational decision, whole set of factors. We can't rewrite history.
Okay, so that's your program. Just to be clear, that's how your program works, when you plug in all the stuff. And so anything else, any other adjustment is us.
We ask that if you implement a plan structure, that at least everyone be brought up to the minimum.
Right.
So any other adjustment is a policy decision.
And can I just ask, and I mean, maybe you don't know that answer, but for the municipalities that you've done in the past, is it a standard procedure just to up? Or is there any adjustment that goes on? Or do you not even get into that? Because I respect if you don't even know what happens after you do your survey.
You mean for individual salaries?
Yes.
No, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Typically what's done, if somebody's out of the pay range, they just freeze that.
They don't get the raises.
Yeah.
They don't get the raises, they freeze it.
Which
Till it catches up.
We won't make any calculations that go above the recommended maximum.
Or it may be a position where the person needs to be upgraded
To
to a higher.
Okay.
You have to look at the individual, situation.
Okay, thank you.
Diane, you're up next.
Thank you. I do want to stay on the event manager. The way I understand this, you're recommending 125, paid grade.
Great, I believe that's where it is.
Okay, and which is 66,000 to 107.
Okay.
That's what's in the proposed plan. Our finance director is retiring right now. Now, the event manager, according to this, bachelor's with 5 years experience maybe, I think it said 3 to 5.
Marketing and fundraising and that kind of activity.
Okay. Our finance director is retiring. His job is posted right now online. CPA preferred, now it is a bachelor's CPA preferred, and I've heard all along that's where we're going to stay, is CPA. His range is 71 to 90. Is that something that came out of this study as well? Because an events manager is being paid, and it is a supervisory position, but there's only a few people. I believe the event manager is going to report to our Parks and Rec director, correctly? Correct?
Correct.
But yet our finance director, the top range is only 90,000.
I don't think that's true, if I may.
That's on the website as a posting.
I can't speak to the website.
But we're trying to attract
We're talking
people,
about
so
the
why would we-
recommendations in the report.
Well, wait a
It would be
minute.
different than what's on the.
Well, wait a minute, on the events manager, that's the salary range. That doesn't mean that's where you're gonna hire the person.
Well, somewhere in between there.
Well, yes, all right.
But then
What's the finance director's salary?
well, do you have any idea of what you're planning on putting out there? Because I know that wouldn't come from you, it would come from us.
61, what, 98?
We'd be
Because
looking, we'd be
61 to
looking at
98.
68,590.
Yeah, you're right. Look at 27. You're right here on their
Level.
proposed thing. A finance
That's
director.
deputy finance
is-
director.
Oh.
Go on,
Finance
finance
director.
manager.
The finance director,
Right here.
under
Right
the
there.
new proposal.
71 to 140.
71 to 140, yeah.
That's the current range. I
That's the
believe.
current,
that's
that's
the
the current run. Under the new one, it would be
May I see that?
87,541.
That's the current.
Yeah, and under the new.
Here's the
proposal,
proposed right here.
Would be
What's the proposal?
87,541 would be the starting salary.
So
So
what's the cap?
87 to
on-
This is what he
139.
would get paid. That's just what he would get paid.
Finance director
Okay.
is showing it 87, recommended 87
That's
to
almost the
139.
cap.
87 to 139, no, 87 to
No.
139.
No, I'm talking about what we're advertising
Advertising.
right now.
Which is what we're supposed to be doing, right? We're trying to attract better people with
Yeah,
this
but that's
study.
not his deal, what we're
No, I
advertising.
said that. I wanted to know if it was part of the study. That was number one. Okay, then my question to you is, why are we going so low with someone we are preferring a CPA?
Well, we're trying to, looking at it as the proposal for the new finance director was about 87,500.
That's on the beginning end.
That's the minimum.
That's the minimum.
That's the minimum of the new one, and it's also higher than the current, under the current pay grade. And so if we were looking at that as a reasonable starting salary, and if it doesn't work, we'll make an adjustment.
Have that water
But this
right
is
there.
kind of in line with the new proposed placement.
That's in line with.
Well,
the-
you've got in here, the minimum is 87.5.
No, that's
Under
what
the
you're
new-
proposing.
Right, under the new proposal, it'll be 87.5.
As the minimum.
That's right.
But on our advertisement, 90 is
Is
the
the maximum.
highest, that's the top of the pay range.
For the hiring.
Yeah.
That's the range she's gonna look at to hire. She's not showing the whole pay range. She's looking at starting, that
That
starting
would be-
pay range.
That would be.
No,
yes.
not 90. You have, it's listed as 71 to 90.
That's
Yes.
the starting,
That's
With the,
range.
with the
starting
hiring.
Oh,
pay
so
range.
With the hiring.
Starting
That's not
hiring
the
range.
pay
So it's not the,
range. That's
Okay.
it's not the
hiring.
range for the
Okay.
position. That's the starting
So
pay
it's
range.
negotiable. is what
Yes.
you're telling me.
That's the
Yeah.
starting
Based on
range.
credentials.
Okay.
Yes.
I
it's
just
just the
think
minimum
if
is
someone
87.
looked on.
No, because I didn't
site
want,
and-
no, if you have the pay range,
I know.
that
We're doing
doesn't
this
mean that you're
proposal.
gonna hire the
Everyone's getting
person at
bumped
the
up to that.
max. You know what I mean? I didn't want to deceive somebody.
But
I want to
think
say,
that advertisement,
where do
I
we think
came
we're gonna
out.
pay somebody?
She's
What would
going
be
by
the
what the
starting
current plan is.
salary?
This hasn't been
Starting
implemented
salary.
yet.
I guess I was looking at
This hasn't been implemented
what you're
yet, so she's
proposing
gonna
for an
advertise
events
it.
manager and what you're proposing for our finance director.
What I'm thinking is.
I just think we're off. But I'm not gonna belabor it now because we still.
I think people are confusing. What is the starting salary or the hiring salary for a person versus the pay range that they would fall into? It doesn't mean that we're gonna hire somebody, for example, the proposal for the events manager, all right, is 68,590 to 109. That doesn't mean that you're gonna hire somebody at 109.
But
It
it's supposed to be
means-
between there, right?
It's, or the starting salary.
You can start below the minimum?
No, right at the minimum, so it'd be 68,590.
That's what, so your proposal now is the new finance director minimum is gonna make 87, Diane. So what Diane's saying, you listed a job, the highest they would make would be 91. The minimum would be
as a starting salary.
Right, but you're saying the minimum would be 87 on this, if you pass this come October.
Well, it would fall within the new range. And what we're saying is, yes, the person would make, if this was passed, then the minimum that would be offered would be 87,541, but you have not authorized the new hiring range. So I'm going by the current one, which is what I have to do.
See, you need to implement the plan.
My goal is that I wanted to raise it to up to 90 as the, or 91 as the hiring range, which then would fall within the new proposed pay plan. I would not want to, if you were to adopt this, I would not want to hire somebody below that because I would be working against your new.
I just think it's confusing. It says anticipated hiring rate of pay. That makes me think that if I applied for this job, that's the range my salary's going to fall in. Unless it says, I mean, I didn't read the whole thing, unless it says this is negotiable. That is just confusing to have that up there if you're willing to go above that. That's all I'm saying.
Well, it's your anticipated. It's your
But because according to the old range.
But let's go off the old range, which you have a good point. Right now, if I'm an IT manager, not the director, if I'm an IT manager, second in the line, I'm going to make basically 93,000. So as the second in line in IT, you could make more than the finance director on this current plan right now.
Wait a minute, wait. You're saying an IT manager.
Proposed, you want to give them 92, but
Okay,
they
so-
were over 90 last year too.
So what is being proposed, there would be a grade 124, an IT manager, under the new proposed pay plan. So their starting salary would be 65,324, and the hiring rate is.
No, but your suggestion is to take the IT manager to 92,466. That's your proposed average, which is
Wait a minute. I don't-
almost at the maximum.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry, I'm not following. Take the IT manager where?
Right now, your proposed on this thing right here, implementation call, right here. You want the proposed average is hold on, is 92,446. If you look at your numbers, 104 is the max, 84 is the middle, so it's still 3/4 of the way up there, but it's still more than what you're advertising a finance director with.
Because you haven't implemented the plan yet. If you do this, you take this pay structure, implement this, your starting salaries will be higher.
But
And you'll be able to attract.
the IT manager made more than 90
qualified
last year too, but that's another thing. But
people. So you're kind of mixing the proposed and the current, and they're not quite matching up right now.
Well, maybe we shouldn't be advertising that until we implement.
Yeah, but what if we don't implement?
Well,
But
You could give the city manager guidance to say you can use the recommended ranges and
I just-
change the advertising.
but I think the point is, it's so confusing. I
agree.
You know, when I looked at that, because I keep an eye on what we have out there. And when I saw that, I thought, oh my goodness, that's not exactly, but again, I think our events manager is another discussion for us to have, not for you tonight, so I apologize.
But I guess I don't understand, because under the current pay scale, all right, for the finance director, the hiring is still well within that range, all right? I guess I'm not following.
What's the upper end of that? I don't have it.
It's 140.
71
It's
to 140.
To 140. All right, the midpoint is 105.9. All right, so the starting salary that's posted is well within this range.
And
All
what's
right.
the new implementation? What would be the starting
87.
salary?
And the new,
87.5.
and for the finance director, it's 130.
139. 140. It's 140.
Well, it's 130.
She's saying great.
Great,
Oh.
130. All right, and so the minimum is 87,541,
And what's the max?
and it's 139,978.
40.
Okay, so you're looking at,
So what I'm saying.
your advertising would be going up to a minimum of 87.5 instead of the 71.8 under the new study.
Right, if that were implemented, if we're not, I'm still within the current, pay range.
Because the
And
top is
she's
the same.
advertising it at 71
Yeah.
to 90, the 87's in that range.
Yeah.
So if they come in and they negotiate 75, and then we implement this plan, they go from 75 to 87. Still in that range.
75.
Well, I'm just saying,
besides the
I'm
point.
just
I
saying
agree, and
that's
that's why
what it's
we're
advertised.
so.
That's why
Right.
this needs to be,
Yeah.
implemented. Okay. Are you done, Diane?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, Brian, you're next.
Yeah, which goes back to the thing that you already brought up. I don't understand how you can do a salary study and not take in consideration the fringe benefits. I'm looking at one right now where they focus on a big part, and they're talking about your most important thing is to monitor future fringe benefits. Fringe benefits are obviously becoming costly, more impact the total budget every year. And we don't even look at it and put it into this. You're talking about, well, we gotta be more attractive to hire somebody. When I go to get a job, the first thing I look at is the benefit package. It's the first thing I look at. So I take the salary second. First is the fringe benefits, okay? And for us, not to include, and I wish he was here, because the one thing he was arguing the whole entire time was it should be the whole entire salary study with the benefits. Because if you look at the only thing that they touched on benefits was, quote unquote, you are higher than most of the people around you, okay? Well, that goes into the salary study. So you're bumping everybody up, you're not lowering anybody. Right now, we don't even know what's going on with the health insurance, needless all the other benefits, because we haven't got down that road yet. So until you put this into effect, like you already said, should you not get back the other health insurance costs are very, very, we're paying 100% of every employee and 50% of their family. That is a lot of money. That is a huge benefit right now. So we don't know if we're going to change that. So how do you want me to say, yeah, I'm voting for this if I don't know what we're doing on the benefit package? Which is just, it's just asinine how we do this. We're doing everything backwards. You need to take the whole entire thing, put it in one thing, and then come up with your numbers. I just have issues with it.
Let me just say as a point of clarification, all right? The consultant did look at our benefits, all right? And they said that they were not out of line. I mean, there are some things that we were.
Quote unquote, you are higher than everybody in the
In
study.
regards to the health insurance.
Yeah.
That was the
That's part of
only
the
part.
benefit.
Which is the largest part.
But in regards to the other benefits, vacation, whatever else, we were basically in line. Now, the staff also did a comparison with other communities in regards to the benefits that were offered, and we were not out of line. Yes, all right, we have to look at in regards to the family coverage, and that's what we're looking at, and that's part of the RFP that we will be addressing.
But that's your package, that's your fringe benefits that go into this position. So if you're not getting the fringe, then you got a whole nother leg to stand on when you want to raise everybody's salary. But when you're giving everybody all these fringe benefits, it adds up. So you're trying to, right now, we don't know this, but you're trying to raise this. Until you have both numbers, how can you even work? I just don't
I
understand.
think your point's well taken.
Yeah.
We were not requested to
Right.
look at benefits, but we
Can you
we know generally what's out there.
But how do you do a salary study without the benefits? Is a lot of cities do that? 'Cause
Oh,
I'm looking at
yeah.
one right now, that's a big portion of this.
Okay, absolutely. One way to make a real straightforward and easy evaluation of that is to inquire of your competing communities. Maybe HR could do this very easily. Ask what the percentage of salary is that's attributed to benefits. And if some say 25, some say 30, some say 35, some may say 40%, and average those numbers and then compare what your percentage of benefits is to salary.
Jane, is that something staff can do?
Let's take a look at it.
Because that's the number they
Does
got
that
right here on
sound,
this.
does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, that's what that, to me, it should already be.
Have staff do that? We'd be satisfied with that being done in-house? Or we can,
What would it require for you to
it wasn't
not-
in his contract.
No, but I'm just asking if we were to add that on, so that you've already done the current thing, how difficult would it be for you to look at the benefit package and apply it to the,
To look at all the benefits as individual items and the various components of it.
or what is your recommendation? How would that be the best? What do you recommend as a professional would be the best way to go ahead and get a clearer picture?
Well, I think what I'd first do is what I just described and see how far out of line. Take the easy route first.
Okay.
And then if that is really way out of line, then you need to dig into the detail, I think.
Well, I think we need to defer to the manager with regards to directing the consultant on what we want. We need to direct her what we want her to do.
Yeah, but
I think it's, I understand, but I think it's prudent. We know what, finance knows what percentage of payroll is attributed to benefits. that's a relatively easy calculation, I think, for staff to be able to give us.
Actually, we already provided it.
I thought we had
But
it
it's the
somewhere.
other municipalities.
Yeah, it's a
All right, so we haven't done it in comparison to other municipalities.
Right.
But
We
that-
know what it is for the.
But that's an easy number, everybody's got that in their budget, that's an easy number for HR to be able to get on the phone and call and get, correct? Ms. Shank?
I can make that a tell.
Look, it says right here, throughout the state, benefits costs range from 22 to 44%. So you know the range you should fall in. You're gonna know if you're on the high side or low side.
Right, and I think that's what you're looking for, right? Just so they have
Just
that
give me a number, yeah.
Give you the number
Yeah.
so you can include it. Okay, is that, sound good to everybody? Will that satisfy us?
Calls. Make calls.
Okay,
Do we want to do, are you asking to do a percentage from finance of what we pay for benefits, or a comparison of the cities? What is it that you're asking?
Of the
Because
other
we've done a
cities.
comparison.
Of the other cities.
We've done that.
if Port Orange's percentage,
Two salaries.
You've done it within this sheet here, you've already done it within the city organization. I'm talking about other municipalities.
Percentage that they spend on benefits?
Yeah.
yeah,
The same thing that you've done here, but compared to other municipalities.
and then we can get that information. Okay, does anybody else have anything for the consultant? Any questions from the public for the consultant? Yes, sir. You in the black, name and address, please, for the record?
Ron Smith, Deltona,
Address.
2489 Eustis Avenue.
Thank you.
The thing I'd like to ask, I see a lot of business owners and employers back here. I'm betting we're all thinking the same thing. Where is it that we're critically understaffed because we can't hire? We're not competitive pay-wise. I heard about public works. If it's one department, maybe we should look at management department head. Or maybe look at a specific job that's not being paid by clerk. I haven't seen, unstaffed desks or unmanned positions around here. What is the need for this?
Can somebody maybe explain how many employees we're down? I mean, we're down how many employees from several years? We've lost 100 something?
It's not so much that we're down employees, it's employee retention. You look at a lot of folks, they get on a department here, they go to they're provided some schooling and some training, they get some OJT that they can put onto their resume, and within 5 years, they're leaving here and going 20 minutes across the river to Seminole County to make an extra $10,000 a year. It's an employee retention issue. It's not so much vacant positions.
That's a very good point. Why aren't those things rewarded? When they do trade, when they get certification, they get a raise. Why does the landscaper that's doing the same job get a raise when he's not going anywhere? He's working right here locally. He doesn't have the cost of driving to and from Seminole, Orange County, Daytona. There's so many benefits. The cost of living is less here. I don't see the need. I do not. I see it for specific positions, but that's easy to address. Like I said, with incentive pay for getting certification.
And Altamont Springs works under a system like that. An inspector comes in and they're hired at a particular pay grade in Altamont Springs, and they're given the educational requirements in order to be able to advance as an inspector, whether it's a code inspector, fire inspector, whatever. And they do that training at their own pace, but as they hit those benchmarks, they know when I get that, I get a 1.5% raise every time I hit one of those educational benchmarks. So if they're real aggressive and don't want to sleep at night, want to go to school, they can easily get a 3 to 7% raise within a year and a half. So it's a system that the manager has in place currently that she inherited. We've had conversations about educational incentivizing certain positions. Just having been here a year, I don't think she's had time to look at that yet in her defense. But we asked for a salary survey to be done to see why we were having employee retention issues, why we couldn't hire electrical inspectors or building inspectors, and I think this has given us a foundation to do that. We need to tweak this now, and then we need to implement a policy as we set this as the base. I think she'll implement some policy, exactly what you're talking about, to address that based on performance and people being motivated and incentivized.
And that's something that I have discussed with Rich, who's our HR director, that we want to reward, outstanding performance, and also to encourage employees to move up in the organization.
Then
We removed it.
Okay, lady in the green, name and address for the record, please.
Susan Collins, 3201 North Wilson Drive. I'm not sure if I'm going to word this right, but what's the sustainability of doing this increased raise and then everybody gets blanket raises? And if everybody's on good behavior and everybody does everything, every year they're going to be getting this raise, which I'm not against anybody getting raises, but we're always saying that we're on the lower end and the cost of living here is lower than everybody else. What's our sustainability of being able to, yes, we're trying to keep everybody, but in 5 years, if this is starting to bankrupt us, we're going to go not bankrupt.
Well, that's what happened. That's what happened in the recession when we went from having over 400 employees down to 200 employees. We had to cut. We had to cut employees. We had to cut our level of service. This commission sets a policy and determines a level of service based on what we hear from the community and what their needs and wants are, and we try and meet that level of service. And we have to do that within a budget. Now, if there's an outcry for a level of service and we can't generate those funds within budget, then we have to come to you all and ask for an increase in dollars. And if you want the level of service to increase, you have to expect to pay for that level of service. If the economy dumps again and we have to make reductions, the only place we can make those reductions is by cutting the level of service. Ms. Shank?
And I also want to make the clarification. If there is this employee who's not performing, they're not getting a raise. I mean, for the consultant, that was really irrelevant. His assumption is that what would it cost us? But for clarity, if somebody is on a performance improvement plan or they had some type of warning or disciplinary action, we are taking that into account. So I don't want anybody to think that it's automatic increase. It does tie into performance. The only thing that we really did is that we eliminated as a pilot program the need to justify that somebody was doing their job. All right, so for ease of paperwork, because we have all these other things that we're doing, we said, all right, most people are. I would say probably even with performance appraisal and evaluations that were done, you might have addressed, with all that paperwork, maybe at the most, you might have had 5% who you were right. You still get to write those people up, but now you're not making all the managers and the supervisors justify that somebody is actually working. We know that they are working, and those who are not, they have the appropriate documentation, and they're not getting their increase.
But my job as a manager is to do what you're talking about, is to make sure my people are performing, and that's what evaluations are for. So you say you could do away with it, we just, everyone's doing a great job. That's why because people are showing up late, they're leaving early, they're taking too many days off.
No.
And to go back to what the lady back here said, she has a point. What people don't understand in the city, we bring in $12 million in ad valorem taxes, $12 million. Our cost of our public service, police and fire, are over $20 million. That's before you even get into the salaries. So you got a point, because we're way in the hole already when it comes to just collecting ad valorem taxes. So her point is you're raising everybody's salary to a higher level. We just heard that we need to hire, we're 100 people, she just said, behind where we were. So now you're going to we're raising everybody's salaries and we need to bring more people in. She has a very valid point that you can't sustain that. That's why you need to be smart, pay a good wage, a wage that everyone else is, and stick to it, and don't reward the bad people.
And we're not. And I need to.
Did you do any evaluations this year?
No, unless.
Okay, then that's all I need to know.
Wait. Unless they had performance issues, then we did do evaluation.
Everybody should be evaluated for a raise.
Well, I'll disagree with you on that.
Well, you're a union guy.
Now, Brian, don't go there. Don't go there. Let me tell you, you want to go there? Okay, now you went there. When I was here, I was not in the bargaining unit for 20 years. Okay, I was an administrator. I was a boss. And none of my people were covered by the bargaining unit. The fire inspectors were not in the bargaining unit. And I did evaluations, and they were a waste of time because nothing happened with them. If I had an employee that was performing badly, I dealt with that employee that week, that time. They got an employee improvement plan. That's how you fix problems. They did not get I did not believe in waiting an entire year till they got an evaluation to deal with a problem. You did an employee improvement plan, and if they met it, they moved on and they were eligible for a raise when the time came. The problem with evaluation systems is how friendly you are with the person that's doing the evaluation.
Very subjective.
They're extremely
I'm just saying, the
subjective.
union contract in the fire department,
The
it's
union
everyone's guaranteed at
contract,
3%.
the union contract is not up for discussion
I'm just
here.
saying.
You're talking about evaluations, and evaluations, as they were being done here currently, were just being pencil whipped and were a
It
waste
was
of time.
time consuming with very little value.
Jane, may I? Just for clarification, we are doing some evaluations on new employees. They get evaluated until they come off probation. So the new employees do get evaluated. So just
I
for
want to,
clarification.
thank you. Commissioner Smith, you're up
Thank
next.
you. We keep talking about the people that need improvement plans, but what this study showed was talking about how cities are going to merit-based plans.
Performance plan.
There was even a comment, and I was trying to find it, but I couldn't, about director. It was under directors, and it said something about high performance and raises, tied into raises. That, we only had this discussion with the city manager one-on-one about evaluations. We never discussed this, so I'm going to share my thoughts now. What incentivizes me to do that great job? If I know I'm getting a raise, it depends, of course, on the person's personality anyway. But the point is, where do I get to show my manager that I really shine? Yes, they might see it or they might not. But an evaluation is an opportunity for an employee to also show their case. When we were school board, we had to fill out our own evaluation and sell it to our manager or our director.
I get two a year.
Well, but I'm just saying, that's my only problem with taking away evaluations completely. I know you say there's ongoing dialogue. I can tell you these folks in this room that are staff are so busy that I can't believe that they have an opportunity to talk to their staff one-on-one very regularly. Evaluations aren't just about putting people on a plan, a success plan, for lack of a better term. And that's my problem if you're talking about merit-based, and I understand where Brian's coming from. Our employees need their opportunity, there's no evaluation. So basically, you're telling me it's arbitrary.
No.
If I was getting a merit base.
No. What I'm saying is that dialogue should be ongoing every single day. You shouldn't wait and say, all right, October 1, I'm now going to have this discussion. All right, that all the other 364 days, it doesn't really matter. All right, and so that.
Oh, so you're saying you had no high achievers in the city? No high achievers. So everyone's just warned. Everyone 3%. Everyone, you could. There's Chris over here. He's early every day. He works his butt off. He didn't come in sick. Thank you, 3%. There's this guy over here. He shows up late. He comes in, and it's Heidi. It's typical Heidi. That's where you're wrong.
If there's coming in late and they're not doing their job, they're gonna get a form. That's not doing their job.
You're not rewarding the high achievers.
All right, and that's what I said, that I've been talking to HR, how do you reward the exceptional? Now, that was the question, all right? And so we want to work on that because, there are some who are exceptional, so there is, something that we need to work on. But most of the people, I will tell you, they are doing their job.
I'm not
And what I'm saying
Just
is
saying,
that
there's somebody that does it better than this guy.
But that is some of the difference between the private sector and the public sector. The public sector, basically, you deal with, because you're dealing with tax dollars, you don't have the ability to give bonuses and things to the degree that you do in the private sector when somebody does something that is exceptional and over the top. And that's a flaw in the system. But when you make a decision to go into the private sector or the public sector, typically in the public sector, if you come in and you show up on time and you do the minimum that you're required to do, that's good enough to get that 3%. There's no competitiveness there in the public sector like there is in the private sector. And I think that's where some of your position is coming from, because you work in that private sector where it is the guy that overachieves does have the ability to get more money through bonuses
Did you
and
see
promotions.
the salaries?
No, I'm just talking a philosophy.
Okay, I'm
Just
talking come to
a
my
philosophy.
company. These salaries are
Just talking a basic
way higher.
philosophy to you,
Yeah.
in terms of, you're saying, how do you reward the guy that is the overachiever? Unfortunately, in the public sector, there's not a lot of room to do that, other than to be recognized maybe by the manager.
We have 300 employees. 300 employees? 300 employees. So you're telling me one guy out of 300 doesn't warrant a raise in him? That's what you just told us. One guy or one person.
No.
Oh,
I
one person.
said that I am aware of one. I do not know of others. I personally am aware of one situation. I do not know, and I haven't consulted with HR yet. There might be many other
I want to
people.
bring this conversation back to the pay study and what the consultant is here for. We've kind of drifted away from that. Heidi, do you have something else on the pay study?
I just think, if you really want to look at the pay study and look at why we had to do it, how did we get here? We got here through a failed policy in the past. I agree with you, Vice Mayor, 100% in your assessment of what went on here in the past. Don't we have an employee program where we're recognizing employee of the quarter? We're doing things like that you reinstituted.
We do.
And Vice Mayor's analogy of the private, or the comparison between the private and the public, I work in the private sector. If I want to make more money, and if I want to get a bonus, it's on me to do that. I'm not in a pay scale. I don't have X benefits. I'm not in that line that you're talking about the public sector has. So what we're looking at, years of a failed HR policy has brought us to where we are today. We had years of evaluations that meant nothing. People got put on a personal improvement plan, take it off, given a raise, put on, taken off, given a raise. I mean, what was the reality of dealing with promoting, and you still have 79% of the employees that are underpaid. 79% of the employees, and your low-end employees, are underpaid. I mean, so how is that a good policy? So, I mean, what we have to do to direct this back is go ahead and at least bring those employees up to a level that it's competitive, so that we keep the good employees, and give the manager a chance and the HR director to go ahead and just for clarification, he's new on board. Is it new? So please, let me clarify that. That's not you from the past. So, I mean, I think we just need to go ahead and look and maybe implement some of the changes that you're talking about over time. But at least for me, it's very, very important to bring those 79% of those people up in line, pay them what they're worth, so that we can have and we can continue to build. We don't have, as Vice Mayor says a lot of time, there's not a lot of succession in this organization. There's not a lot of depth in this organization. And that's what we need. If you want to continue the level of service and you want to continue letting Deltona grow and having a good level of employee, you have to bring that up. And that's just in closure. I just think for that point, we need to move forward on that.
Well, I was just going to say the same thing basically, but how you kind of stole my thunder there.
Sorry,
In the
Nancy.
fact that, I said it earlier, I agree 100% with moving these minimum up to the minimum, because we have to do that. We already know that the consultant said the hospitalization, our health care seems a little bit high, but we've already turned that over to HR to send out the RFPs. We can't do anything with that till we get those back and find out what there is. So I think definitely move forward on the moving of those people up.
I'm going to
As
go.
well as within the range.
And do the survey thing with the other municipalities, the percentage.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to get that information back to us. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move this discussion along to item 4C then.
Thank
you
you.
very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
A lot of hard work there.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right. This is your study. I want you
All
to
right, we're going to be having Mr. Paradise now speak on the Community Development Block Grant funding.
I've got Ron Paradise, Planning Development Services for the record. I got a PowerPoint presentation. It's not very long. I'll go through it quick. The topic tonight is going to be the CDBG Public Service Awards for 2016. Just to establish some context, these are a small element of the entire plan year 16 and 17 Community Development Block Grant allocation to the City of Deltona, which is a little over $465,000 per United States Department of Housing and Urban Development rules, CDBG recipient can only spend 15% on public service awards. And for this year, that would total almost $70,000. This year, we got 11 applicants or applications vying for this 15%, requesting a total of a little over $124,000. You can see we've got a challenge developing here. City staff went ahead and ranked the applications and the proposals within, and we used some criteria of which to come up with a recommendation of what applications should be funded and the amounts funded. The first one is implementation of national objectives. These are articulated by HUD, and they're very broad in general, and they're expressed in the terms of addressing blight, helping low-income and moderate-income households, and implementing health, safety, and welfare elements of local governments. We also look at local needs, one of which is something that has been discussed extensively here, both within the city and the county at large, and that's homelessness prevention. This is a proactive idea where the intent is to stop homelessness before it occurs. Also looked at trying to avoid redundancy. We want to maximize the city's investment. Number of persons served. Best bang for the buck, so to speak. Also, the staff capacity to monitor and ensure contract compliance. We've got a very skilled and seasoned staff, but it's a modest staff. And there are limits to the capability to monitor and ensure contract compliance. That is a large element of CDBG allocation and huge recipient responsibility. Basically, all the applications met at least one of the national objectives. Coming back to the theme of homelessness prevention, this is demonstrated, there's a need for this demonstrated by the latest 2015 United Way 211 audit for the city of Deltona. Nearly 70% of the calls were for income assistance, rental assistance, and utility assistance. Nearly 70%. I think it's 69.4% being exact. So there's a huge need for this out there in the community. And homelessness prevention is not only recognized here locally, it's also something that you hear the state and the federal government talking an awful lot about. With regard to the applicants, there were 4 applicants that were directly associated with this goal of homelessness prevention. One was Community Life Center, and they were planning to spend their allocation on utility and rental assistance. The parenthetical number is the number of people that they project to serve, each entity, with the exception of the Early Learning Coalition. I'll talk a little bit about that before. Hands of Hope, again, utility and rental assistance. Neighborhood Center, same thing. The Early Learning Coalition is kind of a unique operation in the fact that they provide daycare subsidies. Basically, it makes childcare affordable so people can go out and work. They expressed their level of service in the terms of how many vouchers, 67 vouchers. So you can double, there's a multiplier here, you can probably double that, assuming each one of the recipients of the 67 vouchers was a single parent. And that's just being very conservative. Other national objectives, Boys and Girls Club, after-school care and summer activities for youth. Council on Aging, obviously it's elder services. And Healthy Start, they deal with prenatal and postnatal care, infants and babies and whatnot. And you can see the level of service here proposed. Basically, these are the proposed entities proposed for award and the amount awarded or proposed for awards. Again, in parentheses, those are the amounts that were requested by the applicants. No applicant got any more money than they requested. Again, Community Life Center suggesting that they be awarded $10,000. Hands of Hope suggesting $7,500. Neighborhood Center $10,000. Early Learning Coalition $10,000. Boys and Girls $10,000. Council on Aging $10,000. Healthy Start $9,500 to a total of $67,000. That remains about $2,800, a small amount of money. It's questionable based on the accounting and the monitoring that a public service entity would have to go through. It invokes the law of diminishing returns for this small amount of money. There are 4 applicants that are now awarded, or not proposed to be awarded. I want to be very clear about this. This is not a reflection on the merits of these programs. They're good programs. But they had several elements that did not comport with the criteria. The state futures take stock in children. This is a great project. They give college scholarships for low-income kids. And the level of service is 2 applicants. And also, there was questions about it being potentially redundant with the City Harvey Scholarship Program. The YMCA, Summer Child Care Program, proposed to serve 40 individuals. Figured it, we kind of looked at it as being a low level of service for youth activities, and also it seemed to be redundant with some of the mission of Boys and Girls Club. CVI is Center for the Visually Impaired. As the title implies, they provide visually impaired services. They would serve 20 people in the city, and it was somewhat redundant, especially the elder element of it, with COA provides some of the services as well. Though they did have a youth element to their visually impaired services. Finally, the house next door, which was looking for funding to assist in a children's sexual abuse counseling program, which would serve a fair amount at 130 people. However, this is a very sensitive topic, and it is rightfully so. It is protected by a high degree of confidentiality, and the monitoring requirements require transparency. So there was kind of, we figured it was problematic based on the confidentiality and the requirements for monitoring. So that's kind of where we came with that. And again, in parentheses is the amount of money that these applicants were requesting. Now the next step to this is all packaged within an annual action plan that accounts for all the expenditures of that $465,000, including some carryover monies from last plan year. And the City Commission will be approached on August 15th to approve the annual action plan, of which the public service element is a portion of, and will be asked to approve the plan with all the expenditures. I'll be happy to field any questions you all may have.
Diane?
Thank you. I'm very happy with the proposed awards. I think these agencies deserve it. I'm not looking to lower any of the amounts. I think they're right where they should be. I do have a real problem with the applicants that were not awarded. And I know we have a certain amount of money, so let me couch it in that. But I think we kind of missed the point on some of these because, you know, I could go through each one. Futures take stock. Yes, the scholarship amount might be low. Think about the number of dollars that are poured into our classrooms every year that support our students and teachers directly. I don't have that number, but I know it's a lot. YMCA, they're a community partner. I just don't understand how we can leave them off the list, but I do have a solution. So CVI, we promised them money last year. There was something at the end of the year. They promised to wait until this round. Now we're not funding them at all. That right at the end of the year, there was a letter that we received that said they would be willing to wait until the next round. Because remember, there were two. There were Boys and Girls Club and CVI.
CVI did.
Who
Just
missed
the
the
cutoff.
We missed the cutoff. We put Boys and Girls Club definitely in our general fund. Did we also put CVI?
No,
they
because
Because there was an application or something was
Because
missing.
you directed me to go and work with CVI
Okay.
and see if they had a program and whatever amount of funding. And what happened was they made a request, staff met with CVI, and we could not justify the funding. And then what happened was, as time passed, it was getting close to the
Right.
application for the new community development block grant funds, and they decided to withdraw their request.
For general fund and to wait till this round.
Yeah.
So they waited and now they're not being awarded. And then the house next door, I know there's confidentiality, but oh my goodness, the amount of children and families they serve. There's about 2,800 you said left over, right? How much is left over? I'm sorry.
2,800 and some change.
We don't know what the carryover is.
I would suggest that we take some of the remaining, like 2,000. And last week during our budget hearing, we talked about the commission getting $35,000 to spend on different projects. I would suggest, and I know we can't vote tonight, that we take at least 10,000 of that. And with the two, give each of these agencies at least $4,000. I just think that these are, and I'm assuming we can do that because we did it last year for Boys and Girls Club with the 10,000.
And you mean 3,000, because there are 4 of them, so we have 12,000?
Oh, so 3, I'm sorry.
We have
Unless
2,000
there's
left over here, so you take 10 from ours.
12.
There's
Yeah,
12.
so it's 3.
It's 3.
But
Three, not four.
that 2,000, that $2,800 has got to be monitored by the, we can't mix that 2,800. That needs to go someplace that they can monitor it,
Got it.
and yours would be separate
Okay,
from that.
I'm still saying we look at that 35,000. I didn't like it from the beginning.
What I'm hearing though from Ron about some of the justification why they didn't award to some of those agencies comes back on staff's ability to monitor that money. So I'm going to just jump in. What I would say is to take that 28 and bump up somebody that's on their existing list, and then we deal with the ones that didn't get anything if the commission wants to come up with a figure for each of those. For instance, I think, go back on the slide to that. One of them had requested 11,000, keep going back. Okay, Community Life Center requested 11,000, they're only getting 10. We might want to give them another 500. Same thing with the neighborhood centers, so just plug
Well,
it
just
into,
even out
just
that
plug it
28
into
to
someplace
all
so
of
it
them.
makes their monitoring
Right.
compliance easier rather than
Okay, then
complicating
having
that.
said that, I would like us to consider taking that $35,000 and putting it to good use with proven agencies in our city.
I would
That's
be
all.
more comfortable with doing that as a body rather than having it discretionary with individual
I didn't like it to
commissioners.
begin with, so
I
thank you.
agree with you. Okay, I believe.
Vice
Go
Mayor,
ahead.
if I may, we will, if it's the consensus of the commission, we can distribute some of that 2,800. We're probably going to have a little left over. We want to maintain some freeboard to ensure our accounting is okay. I'm kind of looking for acknowledgement from.
Around 2,000.
Yeah, I think that's probably, we can distribute about 2,000. We just want to make sure the numbers bear out. We don't want to overextend ourselves.
I hear you.
We'll just drop another 500 in here or there on
Yeah.
those ones to use it. Mr. Bowley?
Well, just let me add one thing quickly is, in the years go, as we go forward, and we get awards, whatever they might be annually from HUD, as we get applications from these social services as well, one of the policies that we can do is just to take the total that we get and just commit the applications to them with the understanding, as you said, Vice Mayor, that there's a monitoring event, and since these are federalized dollars, so in other words, if there's 15 applications and there's $80,000 that we have to spend, each year, groups might get
Just divide 80. Just divide 80,000 by 15. And
right, and then there's
as long as it's a good organization. I mean,
Right.
we have to go with a reputable organization. Diane, were you done?
Well, I just, to piggyback on what Chris just said, I understand that. I don't necessarily agree with splitting it out evenly. There is criteria and there's level of service involved with all these. I think that the agencies asked for exactly what they needed to fund themselves. If you look at the numbers, there's not a big skew, except I think one of them was, but other than that, there wasn't a big skew. So I would still, like us to look within our own budget. If we have this 35,000 this year, let's
Ms.
look at
Shang,
it.
can you make a note that when we
Sure,
have
we can
budget
look at the
discussion,
budget.
we do that? Okay,
Thank
Brian,
you.
Brian, you're up next.
I'm going to agree with some, but not all of what Diane just said. I just want to go back. When you're doing this, you made the first priority of giving these things out based on homelessness and preventing homelessness.
Actually, implementation of federal criteria.
Okay. Do you look at our community at all? Because, like I said, we have a community of 25,000 kids under the age of 18. And when you look at these things, the Boys and Girls Club, I agree. Look, the YMCA, I don't know how, if we're not partnering with the YMCA, I don't know what we're doing. Now, the futures take stock. Diane, the only part I'm different on this, look, I got to go give a scholarship out to the kids at Trinity. So the first question I asked here was, how many kids applied for the scholarship? There was like 27. 27. We gave out 25 awards or something like that. So, I mean, and to give 16,000 or whatever away to somebody who doesn't have a criteria that we are agreeing on, that's important. All they had to do is take these two, put them in they're going to get.
Do you know what Take Stock is?
No.
It's a 4-year commitment that a student and a mentor make to each other. Sorry. It's a 4-year commitment. And I know because of a Take Stock mentor. My student will graduate next year, but it's a commitment that two people, that a student and a mentor make to each other, and you follow them through their high school career. I know you can sit down.
No, I'm good.
So what I'm saying is, it's not about the number of students. We have to work with the high schools on why the kids aren't applying for scholarships, but that really has nothing to do with this. And futures in general, and Sheila is here, so she could probably help me. Is this specifically Take Stock?
This is specifically for Take Stock and Children.
Okay.
And to advocate what Diane was saying, she's a mentor for a student who was homeless. The mom now has a Habitat for Humanity house. Our students come from various, and it's every middle school in Volusia County, east and west side.
Well, and I guess it comes back to my side when we sit here. We all understand. We would like to reward. We would like to give out.
16,000.
All I'm saying is when that money leaves the city of Deltona, we've argued with her. We would like to. I know you guys might see it, but we never see it. I never see where that money went, how the money was spent. It doesn't ever come back to us. So these, even when we give it to them, we never really see how many.
Know how my money comes back too.
Well, I've never seen it. So.
Well, if you look online and go under the Take Stock.
But
Yeah.
Your job, we're giving you the money. You should be coming that to us.
And I-
Every person on here should be giving us a yearly update
That's part of the
on,
money.
That's part of the
That's part of it.
but I mean, to us,
Yes.
to
You
us.
know, to
The
Ron.
city
I mean, we're the ones that agree, I mean, have to sign off on it, yet I know nothing, like you said, about some of these. No, we never got a report.
Well, that's really not true, because at the end of the CDBG year, we prepare as a consolidated annual performance evaluation, and that's done in December. It goes before the commission. You guys vote whether or not we should submit it to HUD. So you'll
Right.
see it in December.
We'll know exactly where the money is spent.
Yes, sir.
How it's going. Because that's all.
And I'm not advocating that whole amount, Brian. I'm just advocating that these 4 organizations that fell, because of the evaluation process, that fell off, get something.
But how,
It is
I
misleading.
just look at our
It's
community.
misleading, because that's all our Deltona CDBG money can fund. Right now, currently, Sheila, isn't there about 70 children actually participating in the program right now?
We have 238 students that are active.
And they,
all the high schools.
right. And there's.
All I'm going back to, again, just hear me out. Look at our community. When you look at these numbers of what we're giving away, I know Councilman Agee does a great thing, but you're giving them the same as the Boys and Girls Club, where the senior population is 10% of our thing. You're talking 25% we have under the age of 18.
Yeah, but
So
you have capacity for boys and
I'm
girls
just
clubs.
saying that's
They can only serve a certain amount of students.
exactly. But if they're asking for 20 and we're cutting them in half, you just said they request exactly what they need. Apparently, we're not giving them what they need, and that's to me the bigger thing in our community is the young
We're not
people.
the sole source of their funding.
No, that's, I was just
We're
thinking what I'm coming up with.
We're a contributor.
And to piggyback on what you said, they ask if you can run this with partial funding. So when you fill out that CBG, it says, how much are you requesting? Like for me, I requested $16,000 because that's what a scholarship will cost me. The state of Florida matches me dollar for dollar. If I go around here, how many of you are getting your bank to match you dollar for dollar? Nobody. The state of Florida is matching me, I'm gonna get the maximum for my kids. So that's why all of those ask for the maximum amount to sustain what they need.
Okay, Commissioner Hertzberg?
Thank you. Can I just ask a couple questions?
No.
First of all, thank you, Vice Mayor. I'll carry on
Move on,
anyway.
You asked.
So, when does our scholarship money run out for the Harvey? Is that next year or the following year?
I think we have money for 16, 17, and probably 17, 18, and that's it.
And I mean, if we're not going to fund that anymore, then maybe we need to look at redirecting some funding to futures then. If we're not going to, depending on where the money's going to come from Harvey. I mean, that needs, I feel like we need.
Stays here.
Right, but
Keep it around Harvey if we have to budget.
But then we have to reset the criteria because we're not getting the maximum usage out of that scholarship fund at all in terms of applications. For the organizations that have been awarded, and I know the homelessness, how are we doing with HMIS tracking, Ron? Are most of the organizations, I know Neighborhood Center does the tracking, Community Life Center.
We changed the evaluation criteria to add a sentence, do you use HMIS or some sort of tracking? And most of these entities do really well with tracking. And HMIS is a big component of the homelessness-oriented or homelessness prevention-oriented goals or missions of the certain public service applicants here.
Okay, the next question I have is the Center for Visually Impaired. Are they located, do they actually have an office in Deltona? In other words, my question is, if you're looking at a $10,000 that they requested, and for 20 people, is that correct? Am I understanding
That's
that right?
correct, yes,
So
ma'am.
$10,000 for 20 people is you're looking at $500 a person. Is this for people, if you're going to be this concerned about that the money's staying in Deltona, do we have an office here?
I believe no.
Do they come here?
Oh, yeah, they physically appear here. And they,
Or sometimes in school.
Yeah, but that's.
Usually a lot of schools.
Yeah, but does that money stay in?
Okay, so did that factor into why they weren't in?
no, it was just based on the level of service and the redundancy.
And you feel there's redundancy with Council on Aging?
Yes, yeah. They actually partner with COA. to do some of the therapy through or under the umbrella of COA. And we already fund, well, we're proposing to fund COA.
And don't we give them another 20-some thousand dollars out of our general fund?
I thought the number
On
was.
COAs,
Yeah.
yes, that's around the senior center.
So we give them another $16,000 out of our, so it's like out of our general fund, correct?
To run
To run our
the senior center.
To run our
As a
program.
program.
And the Boys and Girls Club, I believe we provide them free rent.
They get free rent.
Free rent, separate from this award.
Okay, and what about the YMCA? What do we partner with them in generally? Anything?
I don't know.
How do you use some of the
Well, we're
senior
talking
center?
about the new
Using the senior center,
right, the new
using
senior center or community center. That
Using
discussion
their
has happened at
facility.
this table.
right.
And they're providing a service, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
They're providing a service to our children. You know, obviously it says it's redundant with the Boys and Girls Club, but I'll bet you that probably they don't have the room, Boys and Girls Club,
They
to
don't.
take these additional 40 children. Summer is very difficult to find affordable childcare.
And that was some of their mission.
Well, I'm pretty sure it was.
Well, I'm just looking at I'm just looking at a couple factors, and I agree with your ranking, and I'm just looking at what the request is for the amount, and then and the number of people served. And when you go back and you look at what you've awarded, I mean, when you're looking at Community Life Center, you're giving them, what, $10,000, and there 617 people have requested the assistance through that. I mean, you're really helping a lot of people. The Neighborhood Center and Hands of Hope and, you know, Early Learning Coalition, and especially Boys and Girls Club and Council on Aging and Healthy Start. There's a lot of people that are benefiting from those funds. So I think you did a great job with that. And if we can go ahead, you know, provided that the qualifications are met by the applicants per what's required, I agree that we can give, if we have that, because I don't agree with the $35,000 to pick and choose whichever. I'm just not comfortable with that at this point. I don't have a problem giving a certain amount to each one, but not nearly what they asked for, because I don't want to, if you're going to start doing that and dipping in the general fund, then at what point do you separate who applies? Just everybody that doesn't get CDBG money all of a sudden gets funded out of the general fund?
No.
I really don't want to set that precedent right now, because that's what you're looking at doing. You're looking at, I mean, if we go ahead and look at these as individual things and say, okay, every agency gets $1,000 or $2,000, but to go ahead and set this precedent, then everybody can bump up really high, and you're going to get a ton more applicants. And just because the general fund is starting to fund that. So that's my concern. I don't have a problem giving X amount of dollars there, but then we need to really set a social services policy, because we contribute nothing out of our general fund to social services.
That's a budget discussion. Let's stay on this CDBG grant money.
It ties into that.
I
if we're
understand,
talking
but we
general
said
fund.
we're going to have that discussion at budget time, so let's keep it on
Thank you.
CDBG. Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Schleicher?
Yeah, Ron, you said we had, of course, the 2863 left over. What do we have in carryover? Do we have
Well,
any-
we're limited to 50%.
Yeah, we can't.
And that's why we only want to do the 2,000, because we got a findings in 2011, because we did go over. We can never spend more than 15% of our annual allocation, period.
Right, so even if you had carryover, you cannot put it back into there.
And it
Okay.
just went up from 10% in 2000. It used to be 10%.
Yeah. And I totally agree with the fact that using the commission fund, and if we find that it's going to cause a problem putting it back into the general fund, because we got, you know, the commissioners can take and use that as part of their donation, you know, individually, where it doesn't go into there, if
I
that's what
hear
we
you,
just said.
but I think
You know,
we
if that
have
is
to
going
keep
to
it
cause us to
total.
have this kind of problem, that's an alternative possibility. But I agree. I agree, it needs to go out. I did feel bad mostly for the Center of Visually Impaired, because they did come last year late, and they were ones that said they would wait for this year. And I felt bad that we didn't do anything, so I do think we need to do something with them. Even though they do get some from the school board, because they come in, I used to have them come into the class, and I had 2 kids that use their services. So I know they come into the schools here for sure. The best ones, I really felt bad also, House Next Door, because when you looked, even though I know that they have some concerns with monitoring because of the type of services, but if you look at the amount of people that they serve a fair amount of people compared to New Hope Human Service, which no problem because of what the service is. But the house next door did service more than some of the other ones that received money. So I do think we really need to look carefully at adding some of the money into those people. If it comes from general fund or it comes from this, either way.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Mr. Paradise. I just asked, anybody else?
I thought you had that.
No? Did you want to say something, Larry?
Yeah, I would like
Go ahead, please.
I've got some history with...
Name and address.
Larry Canterbury. I've got a history with Center for the Visually Impaired, and it's just not 20 people that they're helping. And I challenge people to go home tonight and wait till all the lights go out in their garage after they pull in and try and get out of the car and get to the house. And that's what it's like when you wake up blind one day. It's not only those 20 people who have visual impairments, it's also the families that are taking care of those people, because they get very impatient when somebody's trying to navigate the world and they're grabbing their arm and pulling them, and that impacts, they have to also train the families how to deal with the impairment. So that's why I've got the vision impaired. On the house next door, I was briefed shortly after the house next door took over all the sexual abuse in the county last year. And the agency that was handling sexual abuse in the county, I can't remember what happened, but overnight they lost everything, all their funding.
State cut their funding.
And the house next door was called upon to step in and take care of those needs. They took care of all the county needs for sexual abuse and that whole universe. And it seemed like they were just asking for with the children, but they took on all for the county. And I looked up the statistics a few years ago on sexual abuse with children up to age 16. It just blew me away. It wasn't only young girls; it was also young boys. It's just a huge number. And what the house next door is asking for, I'm not asking you to give them the money, but I just want you to know that that's not all of the sexual abuse that they're dealing with in the county today. And I didn't see anywhere on the list where we're looking at any mental illness. If I could have gotten help years ago, we wouldn't be dealing with it today.
Budget for Larry. Let's budget for
That's all I
Larry.
have. Thank you.
I think that, we're dealing with a constraint that's put on us of 15% by the nature of where the funds come from, and staff is doing the best they can to distribute it as equitably as possible to the agencies. Unfortunately, some of the agencies that are lacking funding are lacking that funding because the state has chosen to cut programs and reduce their budget. And as usual, when the state cuts something, they just becomes an unfunded liability then for the municipalities and the counties. So the fact that we are able to take a good chunk of this money, 15% of it, and put it back into the community and give it to community partners that are proven community partners is a good thing. And I think Mr. Paradise and Mr. Bowley's staff have done a good job in evaluating that and setting the criteria. It's hard to say no to those organizations. I think every one of us here would like to, meet all of those funding requests, but we don't have 100% of those dollars to do that with. Anybody else from the public wants to speak on that issue? Seeing none, we'll move on to item. Oh, go ahead, Patty.
Okay, this is just representing the
Name
ones-
and address for the record.
Patty Stevens, 2790 Augustine Court, Deltona. Just on behalf of the Y, I don't disagree with anything that's been awarded, but I did want to make sure that what was understood is that the program that we were proposing was directed to middle school and high school kids who were needing mentors. So the proposal was the free membership to the Y with a group mentoring program, which is totally different than our after school and summer camp program. With that, I think that's where the misunderstanding was. So our camp and after school programs serve well over 400 children. So it may or may not be duplication with the Boys and Girls Club, but you know, if this doesn't work out, any funds available are always beneficial, whether it's for after-school, summer camp, swim lessons, or anything like that. But this was something new that we were proposing, trying to stay within the guidelines.
Thank you, Patty.
Vice Mayor, can I ask a question? I need a little clarification. Are we fine with the recommendations or?
Yes.
Okay, we are. Okay, I'm all set.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Dolores, you don't have nothing?
Well, I do.
I figured you might. I saw the look. Name and address for the record. Name and address.
Dolores Guzman, 808 South Hancock Drive, Deltona. The house next door, I visit their offices every week, and I see the need that our citizens have from the mental part of their health. So I would love if at least they would get some money, because they try to serve this community in such a way that is inimaginable. Those people work really hard to serve the community, and them not getting some money really hurts the community that they serve.
We'll take a look at that when we get into budget. Okay, last item on the agenda tonight is item D, discussion regarding possible ordinance regulating drivers of vehicles for hire, and that would be Attorney Bose.
Okay, do you want to just take 2 seconds?
Okay, yeah, if there's some folks that want to leave, now's the time.
Now's the time.
You can't leave, Lieutenant.
Mass exodus.
Yeah,
All right, Becky.
Okay, this is the second time this has been discussed. I won't go over the reasons for it because I already talked about that, but I was asking questions at the last one. I was asked to contact the owner of Red Cab, which I did. I talked with Monique, and she's the co-owner of Red Cab, and she had a lot of, she's very interested in the whole thing. She would like to have regulation, and she has the following comments. I put them in the agenda memo. Her first comment was that she can't pick up in DeLand because DeLand has a requirement that in order to be able to pick up in DeLand, you have to have a physical location in DeLand, and you have to have the ability to essentially cover the entire city 7 days a week. It's very comprehensive, and she doesn't have a location there. She would like to have, it's my understanding there aren't very many cab companies in Deltona, so if we had something like that, my personal opinion is that that would limit the people of Deltona a great deal, because we've got a huge population. And if only one cab service or a couple of cab services could service here, I think that would probably hurt us.
Yeah, wouldn't want to do something that helps to create a monopoly.
Yeah, exactly. Now, she pays for taxi cab insurance, and she said that she thought everybody should have to do that. Her cabs are marked, and she thought that all cabs should be marked, and it's my understanding that, some cab companies put, the little magnetic signs on it. To me, I don't know why that isn't as effective as a permanent marking, but I guess that's up for discussion. Her taxi drivers have background checks, and she thought that everybody should, and frankly, that's the reason that this ordinance is in front of you, because Captain Egan said that he thought that, all cab drivers should have background checks. I was also asked to find out what the requirements for Uber drivers are, and I was able to find this out. They've got to get a driver's license. They have insurance that's provided actually through Uber. And it's pretty high. It's $1 million liability and $1 million uninsured, underinsured motorist. And they have a minimum age of 21 for their drivers, and they have to drive a 2000 model year or newer vehicle. And they have to pass a background check. I was unable to find, and I really looked, exactly what the background check consisted of with them, short of signing up myself, and which I didn't do. I don't know what kind of background check.
Tomorrow morning, just put Larry Kent.
Uber driver.
There's no seat requirement as long as it's concierge.
Yeah,
it's concierge service. You can charge more for that.
Strap them to the.
Well, we have no boundaries here.
Okay, also I was asked to look into the relationship between Uber and Altamont Springs, and I found a really comprehensive article, which I just lifted out of the internet. And basically, the city of Altamont Springs is subsidizing Uber trips in the city. If they pick up in Altamont and drop off in Altamont, the city actually pays 20% of the fare. And if they pick up in Altamont and go to the Sunrail station, they pay 25%. I think that would be, a huge expense for well, we don't have a Sunrail stop here, obviously. But, so they are encouraging people to use Uber. So that's the information I have, and the ordinance is essentially as it was before. It's a very simplistic ordinance. All it requires is that either people have background checks that are done by the city, or they have to show that they have a license essentially from another city that requires background checks.
I'm going to start with Nancy, and then we're just going to come right around.
Yeah, I was one of the ones that really wanted to see this come forward too, because of the fact that more and more concern came about people getting into a vehicle without a background check person driving and stuff. So I have really absolutely no problem with that. My concern is wondering is how are we going to, now if the cabs have to have signs or whatever, Uber drivers, how are we going to monitor them? Are they going to be able to are we going to be able to find them, have them licensed? I mean, they're, from what I understand, a whole different category of driver.
Well, actually, we might want to put something in here to exempt Uber drivers, because Uber drivers, from what and I don't know the extent of their background checks.
Sure.
They have some kind of background checks. And frankly, honestly, Uber is so huge.
Yeah.
I would be really surprised if they didn't do serious background checks, because there's so much liability involved in it, and, they could be, if something really bad happened, well, something really bad has happened, with regard to Uber. But that's kind of neither here nor there. They're liable for it. I suspect.
I think the lieutenant's got some input.
Back in May of this year, Uber settled with the California prosecutors for $10 million that it missed their passengers on the quality of the background check. And the biggest thing was they didn't do fingerprint.
Oh, you're kidding. How do you do a background check without fingerprints? Wow.
You can just do a level 1. Level 1.
You do a very basic
Yeah, so I guess
without fingerprints, so they ended up settling for $10 million.
Level 1 is just
fingerprints in this state.
So I guess that was my biggest,
level 1 only does your.
and I think that was my biggest thing with this whole thing was the concern about the Uber driver. Other than that, I think the rest of us are very good. Very good. So that's,
Well, under this, the Uber drivers would also have to come to us.
and get licensed through
Yeah,
the city.
if they picked up here, if they dropped off here, no,
Yeah, you get a permit.
All right, Brian?
Yeah, and that's what I'm just gonna go back to, is looking at this, everything is driving itself off of a background check. Yet, there's no qualifications or meat of a background check. I can look at the background check and say, hey, thanks, and just follow. I don't even have to look at it. I can file it away. Then if something happens, yeah, then I'm held liable. But if you're doing this, do you not put some type of stipulations on a background check? That it has to be, what's the FBI level 1 where it runs nationwide, where's that it's a level 2, and you can't have any felonies or misdemeanors. Why are we not putting any meat in here?
Oh, no, we did. Okay. It's left up to the city manager as to the type of background check and what she needs in order to perform it. And I presume that she would choose to do the level 2.
But you just said, in this thing, you're saying, so if we hire somebody from a different company that does a background check,
Well, not a different company, a different city.
but what if they're not the same requirements that we're having? What if, let's say we're tougher?
Most cities, and I did call around to, I called different cities, they do the background checks with the fingerprints. We could do.
But which level with the, I mean,
Well,
there's one that just pulls FDLE and there's one that pulls the FBI, I mean, the whole country.
Yeah, with the fingerprints, that's a level 2, and it does go, yeah. We could do, before we adopt this, we could specify the cities that we recognized or the counties that we recognized.
Because those are like $65 or $75, those background checks. I mean, they're not
Yeah,
cheap,
they
so, but they have to throw, it has to come through in front, it has to come through the city?
You're right. Because
We have to approve them?
We're granting the permit, and also within here, we do say that we require fingerprints to be taken.
Yeah, but remember, there's fingerprints on the state level, there's fingerprints on a national level, there's when they run.
So we're on level 2 on there.
Yeah.
maybe, rather than just
What I'm concerned about is if we restrict it too much, so that, for instance, if you wanted to go to the airport in Daytona Beach, or if you wanted to go to the airport at OIA, the cheapest way to get to OIA is to call, Mears taxi cab service and, have them come get you, because they can drop off there and they can pick up a new fare there and, whatever. I don't know that all the Mears drivers are going to come to the city of Deltona and register here.
What about dots?
And
They don't come here though.
They pick up on I-4.
Yeah. Oh, do
With the
they?
parking lot,
Yeah,
whether
I mean,
the
you know,
Winn-Dixie, whatever
I mean,
it
it
is, yeah.
depends what
Oh,
people.
parking lot's not
what
ours.
people need, whether
I mean, they also had a Winn-Dixie.
Different city.
Somebody come to their home to pick them up because they're going on a trip.
You can do
They've
that
got all
too.
these suitcases and they want to leave their car at their house. I don't know, I just wouldn't want to limit the citizens too much, as far as, who they could call.
But it's not limiting, it's protecting, this ultimately is to protect them.
But this is still much more protective.
But if you call, I do know that the city of Orlando is one that I did call. I mean, they do the extensive background checks. If you called Mears has almost all the cabs. That's why I use that term in city of Orlando. But if you called them and they didn't have, I don't know that they would bother to find a driver that actually came up here and did, the fingerprints, because it might be one call
Yeah,
out of
by emergency.
100 that they might get in the city of Deltona.
Not likely to
So
do
it might be cutting those things out, but maybe we could put in that we recognize, and I'm making these names up, but City of Orlando, City of Daytona Beach, City of DeLand, whatever other cities that we might find, or
Okay.
Orange County, Seminole County, and Volusia County, if they have regulations, we could list them out. And then those people don't need to have the duplicative stuff. I was just trying to
Yeah,
get rid
that's
of
a good idea.
duplication.
That's a good idea. It's like a reciprocal agreement.
Yeah, I mean, I could get somebody in my office to just get on the phone and call the,
Because you only have to do a few that are right around here, because nobody's going to come very far into Deltona to pick a cab up.
well, no, people from OIA, I mean.
But I mean, you're only going
if
to look at
somebody
just a few
is-
counties.
If somebody's dropping somebody
Few
off, let's say in
cities.
Sanford, and there's a call to drop off at OIA, somebody could easily come over, pick up here, and drop off at OIA. And very few cabs can pick up at OIA. And that, as a result, that's the cheapest way to get there, is if they can pick up to make a return trip.
Okay, Heidi?
Okay, so I'm just gonna make my statement, I'm not for this at all. I think, how much more do we wanna regulate, how much more do we wanna control, and where's your enforcement? If I'm gonna go ahead and wanna go to the airport, and I'm gonna call a limo driver that's gonna go ahead and pick me up here in a personal car limo to take me to the airport, or take my mom because she's old and she can't see, They gotta be licensed, or they have to, you know, I mean, what about if I call the ones out of Daytona, or I call the ones out of Sanford? At what point do you have assurance that that person has a background check? And are we gonna start limiting who's gonna serve our residents? We don't have any businesses in this city as it is. We don't have the best reputation for a bunch of stuff, and now we wanna go ahead and start hamstringing businesses around here to tell them, you've gotta have this, or you can't do business in Deltona. I thought that we were open for business, and I thought we were trying to make things better for our residents in terms of Uber and stuff having bad things. Has anybody heard of the cab attacks that happen when people take a cab? There have been plenty of things that happen there. Some of the cabs in Daytona and other areas are really kind of nasty to even try to take a cab. So, I mean, you know, I'm not criticizing any cab companies, but they're not always the best reputation either. So I don't understand why we're going here when we're looking at what Altamont is doing. They're encouraging people to use Uber to promote Sunrail. I'm not saying we should do that. It's cost prohibitive. I don't agree with that. But other cities are embracing this type of transportation, and we want to go ahead and say, you've got to have this, you've got to have that. I mean, and how are we going to enforce it? Who's going to issue the permit? Who's going to do the background checks? Who's paying for the background checks? Who's going to go ahead and make sure that every single company that comes in here, anybody that decides to give rides to the Sanford Airport, which we're close to Daytona, or who's going to enforce this? And are we really hamstringing our residents, and our company's going to say it's not worth going to Deltona to do this?
She just said Uber drivers have to get background
Yeah,
checked.
they still do. They
Yeah,
have to.
but that's Uber. But that's Uber. Uber
Every
is
cab
its
you go
own.
into anyplace else, you see their license, right?
I don't want my kid into a cab and
Heidi's
not
got the
background check.
floor.
But I mean, but Uber is its own
Yeah, license
entity,
on
and they
that.
are providing background checks. So, I mean, what about the limo service that runs out of Daytona that takes people to Orlando Airport? I mean, is it the city's responsibility to decide that they have to, when they come to my house, that it's the city's responsibility to make sure that they have a license? And how do we enforce that? How does that happen?
But what other cities have this?
That's my point. What other cities have all this?
A lot of cities have a permit. A lot of cities require.
Anyone around us?
Require a permit. But DeLand, you're just saying, DeLand is saying that if you want to operate in DeLand, you have to have these things. But you got to remember, DeLand has a downtown. All these other cities have business districts too. We don't have any of
But a lot
that.
of our residents go to doctors, shopping, whatever.
You know, and what do you do when you look at, what about a Med 1 shuttle? When a Med 1 shuttle comes around? I mean, is that not a transportation service? What about the little red thing that drives around, that other, the other transportation? I mean, are they going to be required to be registered and pay a permit and do all that? Or are we going to accept what they do if another transportation service sets up for seniors? That other little transport thing, are we gonna require all those to go in there as well?
They do.
Because if you're gonna do that, then, you can't be selective. If your goal is to protect the citizens, then you need to protect the seniors that get into those cars as well and get driven around.
Diane?
Thank you. I agree with Heidi. I'm all for public safety, but I do have a few questions. One for you. How many incidents have we had recently that brought this about with Captain Egan? Do you have any idea? Do we get a lot of issues with
In our area specific?
in Deltona with taxi cabs? Do we have a lot of incidents where there's an issue?
No, I mean, we've had one that we have an issue with tax cab.
I asked
But there is-
Captain Egan about it, and he said that the one incident that brought it to his mind was where a passenger attacked a driver.
Right, I remember that.
And then that just made him think,
That brings in-
well,
start looking at
a driver could.
There's just not enough meat.
I just always have concerns when it's in, and I'm not accusing him of knee-jerk, but a knee-jerk kind of feel-good ordinance, and the background checks, how will they be monitored? How are they going to be enforced? Like, who is going to take care of that? And that's a legitimate question that I want answered. Who is going to make sure, because you know what happens now, not that people wouldn't sue anyway, but we're passing this ordinance, do you know what our liability is going to go to? If we're saying we're protecting you people, you're all safe, and then you get in a cab and something happens. Because, you know, my dad drove a taxi when I was a little kid, and we used to hang out up there, and do you know how many times they had to bring in someone to cover? Because this guy is, it's his route today, he's sick. So the owner brings his nephew in to run. Now, is he background checked? Who knows? You know, I just think that, and what department is going to be responsible for this? Are we going to need additional staff? There's just a lot of unanswered questions, and those are all questions, and I'd be happy to type them up and send them so that we could get answers before we look at this again. And also we're talking about a fee, and I know that's through resolution where we pass this. But has there been any mention about what the fee would be for these permits?
Well, it's a regulatory permit, so it has to be equal to the cost of the regulation.
So whatever the maximum background check would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be a money maker for us.
No, it would not.
Well, good. I just want to make sure that we're not.
It would cost us.
And then, of course, whether it's the owner or the driver has to pay for that background check. I think the last time I had one done that was national was probably about $75.
That's what we're paying for coaches.
Okay, that's about, so can they even afford to do this? So these are just, I'll type them up, I'll send them to you and Jane.
And I will tell you that if we don't have an exception for cabs that are licensed other places, particularly where there are airports and they do have licenses at those places, your citizens are going to have a heck of a time getting a cab to pick them up, to take them to the airport. Because, you know, if the cab company will know, well, Deltona requires it. I guarantee you that all the cab companies, there's almost just one at OIA, they're not going to make all their drivers come up here and go through a rigmarole.
No, but they've already done it in Orlando.
Of course, so if we don't respect other registrations, then I think we're really
I'm just worried about the
disservice.
implementation and the monitoring and the
Liability.
enforcement. I don't.
What about limos? Would they qualify the same, like if you rent a limo to go to a party?
Or prom.
The way this is written, it would apply to that. I mean,
But most of them are already.
Okay. I see you back there. I'm going to have mine, and then I'll come to the public. I support doing this. First of all, we didn't have any of these concerns as a group when we talked about putting this on the nonprofits that we require them to do the background checks. And there's no monitoring and stuff from the city that goes there. This is a license. This is something that if you want to do business in the city, you're supposed to have. Will people come and do the business in the city that won't have it? Absolutely. You have people that have businesses that don't have business tax licenses. You have people that are doing nail tech work that aren't licensed nail techs. You have hairdressers that are cutting hair in their garage here that aren't hairdressers licensed in the state of Florida. So, but what this becomes is a tool for law enforcement to be able to attempt to protect the public. It gives them another tool in their toolbox to help protect the public. And I see nothing wrong with passing this. The cost of the background check, that's the cost of doing business. If they're making money, they're going to make that in one fare that they take to Orlando. So I'm not concerned about the $75 that they've got to pay to do this. That's the price of doing business in the city. As far as what staff is going to monitor this, somebody's going to come in, they're going to make an application, they're going to pay their fees just like they do for any other permit here in the city. We don't proactively go and track down whether people have licenses on their dogs or their cats. We don't proactively go out and check and see if people have licenses out on different jobs, construction jobs and stuff in the city. They come in, they make application, they say that they do, and that's checked at the desk. Who's actually on that job? When the building official goes out there, he doesn't check everybody on that job site and swinging a hammer to see if they've got a license or if they've got liability coverage. So this is a tool for law enforcement. I think the intent of it is good. It helps level the playing field for legitimate businesses that want to operate and do business legitimately in the city. Thank you. Lady in the back, name and address, please.
Sherry Erie, 1585 Maxwell Lane, Deltona. You just answered my question, actually. Along with Heidi, I do totally agree with what she's saying, but also leveling the playing field in the area. And I know that Deltona doesn't have that many businesses here, especially here. And I am a business owner, and in the taxi industry, it's not really understood how it actually works in this area compared to other areas. Here is totally different. There's not as much ordinances, of course, it's not. I personally, myself, I make sure that all my drivers have background that I get from DeLand Courthouse, that I actually have my drivers submit to me. But of course, that only covers Florida, okay? So then I also make sure how long they've lived in Florida, and then I make my decision on that actually too. So I do agree with what he's talking about, but also the expense, because the turnover is not, there's a lot of turnover in the taxi industry, especially now because of Uber, okay? Uber doesn't actually affect us that much because our prices are very low, but we're struggling just like any other, company. But if you go into the bigger sectors, of course, the mileage rate and everything is so much more. And, it's a bigger company, okay, they monopolize it, or whatever the case may be. So with companies here, I would actually suggest if it would be best to make sure that they have insurances for local taxi companies. That would be my suggestion, in my opinion on that. Now with Uber, there's absolutely no way, and there's no code enforcement, as you said, to go and track all these people down, unless you open up the map and see how many Uber drivers there are and go follow them, or open up a coalition, which I've even thought myself, but why spend all that time to do that? I'm trying to make a living and make a business grow. So, that's pretty much where I kind of stand on that option.
Okay. Anybody else from the public? Yes, sir.
Ron Smith, Deltona. The reason I want to speak on this, just a few weeks ago, I had to replace my transmission. And for a week, I used Uber about 5 times. One of the reasons I called twice for cabs, it took me an hour. I didn't have an hour. Uber was there in 8 minutes. Before I take that Uber, I have a picture of the driver. I have a rating from the customers that use it. I have a rating from the company. I know the vehicle he's driving. I know he's insured, and I know no cash is changing hands, so there's no reason for him to rob me or me to rob him. They were fast, they were efficient, they were friendly, very professional, clean cars. It's their own cars. I'm sorry, but I haven't gotten in a clean cab in a long time, even when I can get one. And the main thing, again, we're talking about bringing jobs to Deltona. I talked to each of these drivers. I asked them how they loved it. They love the company. They love the way they work. They love the way they work with them. They do, the company only takes 20, I think, or 25% of the fee. The rest goes to the driver. So they're paying taxes here because they're getting a tax statement with their money. That money's getting spent here. I don't understand why we want to lump this together and make a problem where there isn't one. If anyone can show me, if anyone can show me the ongoing problem, I would love to see it and understand it. We're manufacturing something. It's like the bathroom issue in North Carolina. We're making up a problem that didn't exist. There was no problem. We're creating it if we do this.
Anita?
Just a real quick question.
Name and address for the
Bradford, Deltona, Florida. So there's an Uber franchise, I guess, main headquarters based somewhere, right? Is there, to me, it's like in each city, if I'm going to bring my business here, I've got to have a business tax receipt showing I do business here. Do they have that here, or is it just these people who just, okay, I'm going to work for them and, I'm based out of here? How does that work?
Okay, in order to, they don't need a business tax receipt here.
So they can just come here and open a business kind of and not have to pay that and be regulated like anybody else?
Well, business tax receipts are taxes, they're not regulations, there's no
Right,
regulation.
right, but it
It's
showed
not-
that, but you know that they're doing business in a city, kind of.
Can I?
Yeah, Dale?
You only have to have a business tax receipt if you have an office here in Deltona. The example, right, the example I use, if I call a plumber from Orange City and he comes over here to fix my hot water heater, he doesn't need a Deltona business tax license because his office is in Orange City. He only needs it if his office is in Deltona. Does that answer it?
Yeah, that's, because I know a lot of them reside here, and I'm assuming that their office is their homes, which would mean that would almost count as a home office.
Well, that's,
Well, probably their office is their phone.
Mm-hmm.
And they, you know, they
Yeah,
could
it's
be
a remote.
anywhere, and I think they get their instructions on their phone, so they might be over in Orange City doing shopping or whatever, so it's.
Well, I think what that is Uber has a home office somewhere.
They do,
Right.
It might be in California, wherever. That's where their business tax license is where that home office is. This is nothing more than a satellite of that, just like the guy that works for a plumber for Orange City Plumbing. His office is in Orange City, but he brings the plumbing truck home and works from his truck.
No, I don't think we should eliminate taxi drivers at all, and I'll tell you why. How many years has the sheriff's department, how many times have we seen commercials, and even the fire department, don't drink and drive, call it cab. And the last thing I think we want to do is discourage anybody from getting, that help and getting that ride. I mean, I don't want to discourage that at all. We work too hard to save lives. It's not just, when we need a ride in parking lot.
Anybody else?
Can I just ask this, Eric, is it Eric? Yeah. How would a $75 background check impact you and your employees?
Well, right now, I'm paying only $27 max, and I reimburse them.
You do
And yes, I
reimburse
do, I reimburse
That's
them.
just the state one.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, but I'm saying it's going to triple if she has to do a level 2. And that's what I'm asking, what's the impact on our local businesses? I agree, are we creating a problem that may not exist? I don't know, and I need more
On
information.
the local business, you would, because we're a smaller entity.
Right.
On a larger business, it's Uber, you would not.
Of
They're
course.
already
Right.
covered, so they don't.
Right.
Yeah.
But the level 1 background check in Florida is worthless, because if I'm a criminal in Georgia, I'm coming to work in Florida, so
I'm just saying the impact
it's,
on
it should, you always want to do a level 2 anyway. If you're doing level 1, you waste your money.
Can I just ask a question?
No.
And yeah, I'm going to, because it's on a penalty. It's on a penalty. So what happens if she has her company and her taxi guy can't come in, so she gets some other guy to come in to, you get to call another driver that doesn't have a background check, and something happens, and it's found that her driver doesn't have that what we are requesting in the ordinance. What's the penalty? Who collects the fine? Who enforces it? How does that work?
I don't think there is I don't think it's set up that way. I think that you're missing the point. The idea here is to try to our best to help ensure public safety. These are people that are just showing up to pick up our kids at the movie theater to bring them home. They're bringing home folks that have had a little bit too much to drink. We want to, to the best of our ability, help ensure that they're getting into a safe environment when they're getting in the car with somebody. I would, when my son was little, if I wasn't picking him up from the movie theater when he went there with friends, I checked out who the parent was that was picking him up.
Yes.
How many times have we seen on television where a parent is picking up kids at school and they're drunk and fall asleep at the wheel sitting in parent pickup? This is no different. We're letting our kids get into these cabs when they call. So it's a tool. We're not going to debate it anymore tonight.
But I want to know, is there a penalty? Yes or no? Is there a penalty?
It's the driver, it's not the taxi cab company.
But I mean, is it a financial penalty or?
It's a general ordinance violation, which is either a $500 fine or 60
So
days
if something
Or
occurs,
go to the special
it's like what seatbelts used to be. You couldn't, now they've changed that, but initially when they had the seatbelt violation, you had to get pulled over for something in order to
Right,
get tagged for the
secondary,
seatbelt.
yeah.
This is the same thing. If they get into an accident, and we have an ordinance in the city that says that they have to have a hack license in the city, and they get into an accident and they're found out that they don't have that license, there's a penalty from the city, but more importantly, the company could be in trouble with their insurance company because they had a non-compliant driver driving their vehicle, and that may be a condition of their insurance contract. So again, it's just a tool, I think, to help law enforcement, more importantly, to ensure that we've got good people that are in these vehicles picking up our families, our kids, our elderly. That's it for Ms. Chang. Do you have anything else for tonight? We stand adjourned.
Are we bringing it forward or not?
She needs clarification.
What?
I think we have some
Are
questions.
we moving forward on the?
I think Ms. Chang will schedule it for a regular commission meeting, and we'll discuss it there.
And then we'll debate it.
Yeah, I'm gonna tweak it after the.
Based on a couple of
Couple conversations.
If you have specific comments that you want Becky to have, send them to Becky, and she can incorporate them. We can debate it at a regular meeting. We can do 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 it at a regular meeting.